We have 5,000 data centers in the United States. China has 400. So this whole competition, how the hell is that a competition? Wall Street is seeing water as the next big commodity. So they're buying up water rights. This is happening everywhere. Their plan is to drain us dry and sell us back our water. They might take all of our water. People are already going in debt. This could double power bills, triple power bills in some areas. Every right, liberty, and freedom any of us have is because of organized people fighting for it. The organized money knows this, and that's why they go so heavy into this divide and extract. I cannot get to town without driving by a flock. And those flock cameras, they don't just read license plates, they actually can connect to your Bluetooth, they can do facial recognitions. Losing your right to privacy is always step one. It's a measure of control.
Where'd you go to school at?
Southwestern.
Where's that at?
In Georgetown.
Oh, you went to school in Georgetown.
Yeah, my family wanted it to be close so I can continue working the ranch. I studied international trade, international politics. Okay. Hence why I lived abroad for a couple of years and was the water researcher and everything else.
Where did you live abroad?
China. And Taiwan.
How is that?
Well, let me put it this way. When I see all these new flock cameras and everything else, I'm like, I've seen this rodeo before.
Wow.
This is not a road we want to go down. Tucker Carlson actually put it really fantastic when he was debating with that Kevin O'Leary guy. Yeah. And he's like, y'all keep saying we need to compete with China by becoming like China. Like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
If you ask me
antithetical to the supposed American values.
Yeah, when I was there, I was like 20 when I was there and just being a little shit. I knew asking about Tiananmen Square was illegal. Uh-huh. So I Googled Tiananmen Square. My phone got shut off. My internet got shut off. My credit card got shut off.
No
for 3
way.
days. I had to pay with cash for everything.
Wow.
So when the Larry Ellison's with Larry Ellison's with Oracle, but when those Oracle Palantir folks, everything you do.
Peter Thiel with Palantir.
Yeah, yeah. I think this was Larry Ellison who said this one with Oracle that all Americans will be on their best behavior because everything will be watched. So I'm like, I've seen this rodeo before. No.
Yeah.
Not in this country.
Yeah.
If you want that, go live in China.
Yeah, go live in China. Don't bring that stuff here.
Don't bring it here.
So you were researching water in China. What was the main focus with that?
It was studying the difference between American water policy and Chinese water policy. Now, on paper, the Chinese have a really great water plan. If you just read the paper, it's not bad. Of course, nothing's actually enforced. Political bribery is very, very common. Ring a bell for here as well, where they can very easily get out of things. So that was very common. They would have all these plans, but when you actually go research and go to the actual facilities, the facilities aren't even turned on.
Wow.
Yeah. It was funny. We would go there and then the officials would realize we were there and they're run over and they'll flip a switch on. They're like, oh yeah, we just testing. And we're like, yeah, whatever, dude.
So you saw that enough to where you realized that there is a lot of sort of superficiality with the policies and behind the scenes are actually.
What that taught me fundamentally is don't trust what's on paper, trust what you see with your eyes. And that's true with these data centers. On paper, yeah, they'll promise the sun and the moon and the stars, but trust your eyes first. And really that should go with not just data centers, but with everything.
With life.
Trust what you see, trust what you hear, because it's super duper easy to lie on paper.
We had a statement that we'd say in the Army when I was in, trust but verify, which I've definitely adopted as well. Is yes, I trust you, what you're saying, but I'm going to go verify myself just to make sure.
Yeah, that's an old Russian proverb of all things.
Really?
Yep. Unfortunately, under Putin, they're not really doing that anymore. But,
I question all that related to what we know internationally, but that's an entirely separate topic.
True.
So I'd love to hear how you even got into investigating these data centers and then what led to your political campaign where a large part of you running for agricultural commissioner is dealing with stopping these data centers.
So when I initially started running, which was about a year ago, I was running against the monopolies, against big ag, against the big agrochemicals. I just have a major bone to pick with them. They're destroying family farms. They're one of the biggest reasons why food is so expensive at the grocery store.
And you have a family farm yourself.
Mm-hmm. Lampasas, we raise cattle, goats, donkeys. Well, the donkeys aren't for eat. The donkeys are keep the coyotes away.
Got it.
So yeah, and after living abroad, I saw countries where 30 acres was all you needed to make a good living. You weren't rich, but you weren't broke. And that's how it used to be here in the 70s before this whole get big or get out scheme came about. So originally I was running to pick a bone with them. So I'm the secretary of the Texas Farmers Union. We're a family farm-based organization here in Texas. And one of our members gave us a resolution calling for a moratorium on data centers. And this was November, December of last year. And I didn't really know much about it at the time, but I was reading, because I was on the leadership, I was reading that. And I was like, if what this person is saying is true, these things are dangerous. So I'd end up doing a little bit of my own research, realized everything they were saying was true. And after that, it was a done deal. So we've been talking about data centers for the last 7 months.
Okay. And so basically, the problems with data centers were so significant that you felt it was appropriate to turn a big piece of your campaign into looking at what's going on with data centers, speaking out about what's going on with data centers, and ultimately putting a total halt on data centers as they're currently being offered.
This is how I see it. All Americans, all Texans, let's just look at Texas. Everyone who calls Texas home fundamentally wants the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're city or country, team red, team blue, team green, team yellow, team whatever. We all want to do what we love with those we love for as long as we have time on this planet. Data centers, as they're being done now, as they are likely to be used, are an extreme threat to that. They take a lot of our water. They might take all of our water. We're already running out of water in this state. We just don't have the water for these as they're currently be designed. And they don't even need to use water, but we can talk about that a little bit later. Their power inflation. We're already in an affordability crunch. People are already going in debt. This could double power bills, could triple power bills in some areas. And then you look at the noise, you look at the pollution, you look at the heat, and that doesn't even get into the use of all these things with the flock cameras appearing everywhere, with the big tech folks saying all jobs are going to be automated away. The use part's a little bit above my pay grade as ag commissioner. That we have to go to Congress or even the state for that. But what we can do is focus on the resources and the resource issue.
Okay. And I want to get into all of that, unpack everything that you just said there.
I'm becoming a walking encyclopedia.
I love it, man. I mean, that's why I wanted to interview you. That's why I was hounding you on social media. I really want to make this happen because I know that I pride myself on being able to ask some good questions that a lot of other people aren't either willing to ask or aren't able to ask. And that's not because I'm better or wrong. It's just because with this podcast, I'm afforded the opportunity to connect the dots on multiple pieces of what's going on in the world, whether that's how our body actually works, our connection to God, our connection to the natural world, or just the agendas that are happening in the world, or even just the agendas that are happening domestically. Because obviously with this, we're going to be speaking about data centers from the perspective of Texas, but it applies. I'd imagine what you say applies to data centers, period, across the United States and really the rest of the world in most cases.
So there's a distinction to be made. In my mind, there's two types of data centers. There's what we can call the data banks, right? These things are the things that are 10 years old. They're like a megawatt. When you go on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or Netflix, you're using a data bank. Relatively small amounts of power, relatively small amounts of water. Not that you can fit them in a closet. They're not that bad. Then you have the AI data centers, the hyperscalers. Those are the ones that are, the size of towns. You're talking gigawatts then. The same amount of power as the city of Austin, the same amount of power as the city of San Francisco or Seattle. Those are the problem, and those have to be stopped.
Okay. And so let's start with what the intention is with these data centers, or the stated intention and the stated necessity for them.
So, oh boy, I love jumping into this because I love poking holes in these folks' arguments. So the biggest one you always hear is China. China. And look, this isn't to say there isn't issues with Chinese society. I've lived in China. A fun little story there about their mass surveillance state is if it's illegal to mention anything about Tiananmen Square. For folks who don't know, in 1989, students rose up for freedom, and they rose up in a place called Tiananmen Square, and the government sent the tanks in and killed a lot of people. That was China's moment to become a democracy, to become a free country. Sadly, it didn't happen. And so super duper illegal to mention it there. Well,
most of the generations now don't even know that actually happened in China, from my understanding, or they know about it, but it's kind of like this myth that you don't speak about.
It's a myth you don't speak about. If you get them a little drunk, sometimes they'll mention it. But even then, they're scared because there's a lot of secret agents.
Yeah.
So you never really know who you're talking to. But when I was there, I was like 20, so I was a little bit of a derp head at that time, and I just Googled, or their Baidu, their version of Google, Tiananmen Square. My phone got shut off, my internet got shut off, my credit card got shut off for like 3 days. So I'm like, okay, message received. So they'll talk about China. Well, here's the deal. We have 5,000 data centers, more or less, in the United States. China has 400. There are more data centers in the United States than the rest of the world combined.
What?
Yeah. So this whole competition, how the hell is that a competition? It literally is not a competition. We dominate. Look, if it was 5,000 and 5,000, maybe we could hear them out because maybe there's a point, but it's just straight lies. And they actually know this. So back in the early 2000s, more like 2010, the AI companies, big tech companies, were going to Congress. They were asking for money, and Congress, being Congress, wouldn't give them anything. They're like, oh, we don't even want to listen to you. But the moment they blew that dog whistle, the Chinese dog whistle, those congressional hounds started foaming at the mouth. They started acting like a dog on rabies, and they just opened up the floodgates.
Wow.
So once they started doing that, that's when our public money, that's when the corporate handouts started coming out for them. So there's no competition. That's just a complete lie.
It's also not an argument.
Yeah.
It's not an argument. It doesn't pose anything related to the necessity of having them. Like, why have them?
Yeah. I was watching a video of Tucker Carlson debating Kevin O'Leary, the Utah data center guy. And, Kevin's like, oh, China, blah, blah, blah. And Tucker Carlson was like, so your argument is for us to become more like China. So that's one of the things. Now, there are two other, and I'm pulling quotes from the top. Like, these are the people behind it. So you got Larry Ellison with Oracle, along with a little bit of Peter Thiel with Palantir, saying every American will be on their best behavior because everything we do will be watched.
So they're not even trying to hide it.
No. Well, this could be a coincidence. It's not like I have any paperwork, but I don't believe in coincidences. I started talking about data centers around December, and a flock camera appeared outside our ranch. Not too fast after that.
Right outside your ranch.
I cannot get to town without driving by a flock.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can, but it's a pain in the ass to get.
You're right. You have to go all the way around.
I have to go super duper back roads. And sometimes I do that just to screw with them.
Yeah.
But, it's just one of those deals. And those flock cameras, they don't just read license plates. They actually can connect to your Bluetooth. They can do facial recognitions. And they're not doing it to the criminals. They're doing it to everyone. Mm-hmm. So it's just we're giving up our privacy, and that's always the first step, right? That was the first step in any. I visited when I was in Asia. I went to a lot of different countries. I went to free countries. I went to communist countries. I went to not really any sort of thing country, but still dictatorship. And losing your right to privacy is always step one. There's never any other step one. That's the step one because it's a measure of control.
100%. I want to comment on that real quick, just from my perspective. So in the town that I live in, we have flock cameras as well. And a flock camera was able to identify a legitimate felon. And I'm talking about a violent felon, right? And so a lot of the people on our town's Facebook page began cheering for flock cameras. And where I think people are completely missing the mark when it comes to this is we can go back to COVID as an example. Lots of my audience, if not all of my audience, was very opposed to what happened during COVID, right? Actually, I can't even imagine there'd be one person that listened to the show that would think otherwise. But
COVID opened the eyes for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, right. And imagine the level of government tyranny, medical tyranny that was intended to be thrust upon the population, exacerbated by them being able to watch your every single move. So even if right now flock cameras are getting criminals, in air quotes, those same mechanisms, those same structures can and will be used by any future administration, whether at the federal level, state level, local level, county level, whatever it is, to thwart and to stop and to impose what they would like to on anyone who doesn't agree with it. And that's the problem. And that's where people are completely missing the mark when it comes to this bipartisan political landscape that we're in, which I think is purely an illusion, but that's a separate point. Even if it is real, and I don't think that it is, even if it is real, these same things will be in place when the people who disagree with your current perspectives take office. And that is a massive problem.
Yeah, it's just, once the tool exists, whether it's 1 year, 10 years, or 100 years, bad things will eventually happen, unfortunately.
So for me, they're stating directly their intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, and I'd just love to hear your thoughts on this, assume that data centers are for things like Claude and ChatGPT. And maybe, I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. Maybe there is some truth to that. And I know a lot of people are saying not to use Claude and ChatGPT. And I'm not really a big fan of AI. I sometimes use Claude a little bit here and there. I have friends who are using Claude for website development. And some of the stuff that they've shown me is truly incredible. But I wonder if that is partially a red herring and it's more for setting up these control grids that we're discussing right now.
I would call it largely a red herring because look, every great lie has an element of truth. Like the best lies in all of human history always have a little bit of truth. That's just how it works. And yeah, it's one of those deals. Like I'm not against AI. I'm okay with it as a tool to help people, to help work, to help make things more efficient. I'm not for it as a replacement of people. And if you listen to what the AI folks are saying, I believe it is the CEO of Microsoft as well as the CEO of Anthropic have both said that within the next, whether it's 18 months or a couple more years, that their goal is to automate all jobs away, at least the white-collar jobs. The robotics will get the blue-collar jobs too sooner or later. And that's why they're spending trillions of dollars. Like they wouldn't be spending trillions, and like I believe one number I saw is like $7 trillion. Is if you try to look at the whole scheme of it, like all aspects of it, which also, funny enough, $7 trillion is about the equivalent of the American workforce. So, follow the money.
And that sets up the perfect conditions for if AI takes over so many of Americans' jobs when Americans are already being squeezed in a variety of ways. Inflation is running rampant. We have all the stuff that's happening with the Strait of Hormuz being open and then closed and open and closed and open and closed, and all of the resources that, unfortunately, speaking specifically to conventional farms, as much as I'm not a fan of conventional farming whatsoever, the reality is they rely on a lot of those things that are coming through the Strait of Hormuz. But I can see a future, and it almost seems very dystopian, but it's you see what they're headed towards, especially with Agenda 2030 being expressed overtly by the World Economic Forum and by the UN and other, of these big agencies, that they want to take away our ability to make a living so that we have to rely on a UBI. And that UBI comes with certain parameters that we have to meet in order to continue having access to that UBI. Do you think I'm on the mark there with that?
You definitely could be. And I always find it fun when people say like, oh, automation's okay because we'll just have a UBI. I'm like, we don't even have roads without potholes.
Right.
We don't even take care of that base. Our pipes are still leaking. Like we don't even do that. And plus, if a UBI, if done well, if done right, if done in a sensible way, I'm not inherently against it. Like I'm open to discussions about it. I think it could be useful in certain ways. Like there's like one example would be like a negative income tax. Richard Nixon actually, up to this point, is the only president who has ever proposed a UBI in terms of a negative income tax, which basically if you made less than a certain amount, the government, instead of paying taxes, you just got money back, right? So it created a floor. If done right, that could be okay. The devil's always in the details. But yeah, like we have to be careful, particularly the whole digital currency. If done wrong, it can easily become a control mechanism, which we're actually seeing in a lot of authoritarian countries. More and more of them are moving towards digital currency and digital currency only. And that is not something we want to mandate.
So I want to go back to the top executives with these data centers and what they're saying, other than them overtly stating that this is so Americans will be on their best behavior, which you can read between the lines with what that implies. And again, with the context of things like Agenda 2030, we'll set that aside. Is there anything else that they say with respect to the necessity of these data centers?
Not really. I mean, and So you got the surveillance part, you got the mass automation so they can control. I'm about to call a spade with this one. I'm just going to call it as I see it. To me, this is a dick measuring contest between billionaires.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, that's what they did with all the rockets that are also shaped like phalluses, you know.
Right. That's a very good point.
So like to me, like the real competition isn't United States and China or United States and whatever. I would actually argue probably most of the world population should be on the same side on this one. It's just literally these greedy few elites, whether you call them billionaires, oligarchs, they're all the same people, right? It's just a fight between them because they think if they get AGI first, if they can automate the AI research first, then they'll control the entire global economy, which if they do that, they actually might.
Yeah, they actually might. What is so incredibly disturbing to me is that what I'm hearing from you, assuming that it's true, and I have no reason to believe that it's not. I think you're an upstanding guy. And from what I've seen, I haven't seen any other proposed reason for the necessity of these data centers other than what you're saying. And I've done a little bit of research. I follow a lot of different people talking about it. How in the hell do we already have 5,000 of these in the United States? And how are they able to actually develop these things in the first place? Like, I know that's a very big question. Let's speak from the perspective of Texas, right? Mm-hmm. Where, from my understanding, we have the highest amount of data centers in the United States per capita.
Number two.
Oh, who's number one?
Per capita? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think we're not at per capita yet. Virginia's still number one.
Virginia's number one.
But we're moving in that direction.
Yeah. Well, Virginia's right next to the belly of the beast. So that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. But how in the hell have, I think, over 400 of these now stood up in the state of Texas?
Between 3 to 400.
Yeah, between 3 to 400.
No one 100% knows. That's also
part
of the problem.
A problem. That's also a problem. How have that many of them stood up in Texas?
I think the fundamental issue that we've had, and thankfully people have now fully woken up to this. I'm talking people on the left, the right, the center, everywhere, is we treated big tech as the golden child. The golden child could do no wrong. They were great. They were fantastic. Let's let social media do whatever they want to this generation. Let's let, this all happen. No regulations, no anything. Well, people finally realized that these people are not good people. They're not good companies. You have a lot of whistleblowers like leaving OpenAI saying, OpenAI is actually just yet another corporation. They're not a nonprofit. Everything was a ruse. So we're seeing that people are waking up that we need to hold big tech to a higher standard. We need to, frankly, break them up because they're a monopoly. Because if we can actually create a true, people always talk about we live in a free market. We really don't anymore.
No, we don't. Absolutely
We live
not.
in a monopoly market.
Yeah.
There was a time, I believe, we lived in, particularly on the agriculture side, we definitely had a free market for a while, or free-ish. But right now, it's this pure monopoly market in ag and tech. So
that's my problem when people speak ill of capitalism, assuming that what we have now is true free market capitalism is...
Yeah, this isn't capitalism.
No, this is not capitalism.
It's not capitalism in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Yeah, so monopoly of corporation, monopoly of government, including economically.
Yeah.
Monopolies, no matter how benevolent, quote unquote, they may start, they never end that way.
Right. But again, my question is it on the counties? Like, how are these multi-million, if not billion-dollar projects to build these data centers being passed seemingly so effortlessly up until this point where people are now realizing what's going on and pushing back? And you see, like, just north of here in Temple, Texas, a bunch of people came to oppose the data center. I think, if I remember correctly, there's a moratorium on it temporarily. Let's set that aside, though. Let's talk about that, because I do want to talk about like what we as people can do, because I don't want this to be all doom and gloom. I want to set the context of how harmful these things are, get into all those details, and then get to solutions. But with that being said, how is it that 350 to 400 of them have popped up in the state of Texas, and there are still ones being developed all over the United States, even with the understanding that they are incredibly problematic? Is it that the county commissioners are in bed with some of these companies in some cases, that they're being paid under the table or behind the scenes? Is it that they just don't care because they want the money, and they want the money for the economy? They think of it as, oh, this will create more jobs in the area. What is the reason that these are still projects that are going through with all the context we've shared?
A little bit of everything you just mentioned.
Okay.
There's a lot of bribery. Let's just not even call it I don't even call it donations or any of that. It's just straight up political bribery. It's actually kind of funny. There's this county judge, small little county near Austin, that was talking all sorts of smack about us online, like, oh, not even an agriculture issue. To which I say, if it takes water, then yes, it is.
Yes, it is. If it impacts livestock, yes, it is.
Yeah. And turns out he took $15,000 from a data center. So we found that out last week. That was I had a lot of fun rubbing that into his face. But yeah, there's a lot of that. There are some people who just didn't know better. Again, with that golden child thing. I would say from some numbers I've seen, big tech has been flooding the market with $200 million buying out politicians. Even my political opponent has been bought out $300,000. You look at the governor, you're talking millions of dollars. And this isn't unique to one political party. Both political parties, the leadership, right, of both political parties. I want to distinguish between the base of the parties, because in my view, the base, whether you're an independent base, you're a Republican base, you're a Democratic base, Libertarian or Green base, the base is largely on the same side of this issue. Like
100%.
This is the most cross-partisan issue I've ever seen in my life. The leadership is where that disconnect is. So there's a lot of money, a lot of bribery.
You mentioned your opponent running for agricultural commissioner being paid $300,000 by someone who I'd imagine who's in bed with or as part of big tech.
There's a gentleman go by the name of Mr. Moyer. He made his money by being a big tech investor. He made his money by being an investor in data centers. So, connect the dots.
Okay.
I will say these data center folks are usually smart enough not to donate money directly. They usually do it through subsidiaries or through individuals.
Okay. So this is someone who himself has invested in big tech and is now investing in the campaign of your political opponent, essentially.
Yeah. Plus a lot of other pro-big tech or pro-data center candidates.
So that's probably the commonplace factor that's happening here. And when it comes to, I'm just interested, I don't want to turn this into a thing to bash your opponent necessarily, but I'm just interested in how this goes politically. So does your opponent, is he just super quiet about data centers, or is he overtly pro data center? How is that going from that perspective?
It's the typical, I am concerned about this. It's like the strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
Which funny enough, I was actually thinking about this driving over here today, that, for folks like us, like we have to obey the law, we have to do all these things. But for these corporations, it's more the laws, it's a strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
So even and frankly, this is the same with the governor at this point as well. His whole, ban data centers, blah, blah, blah. It's a strongly worded letter. There's no teeth. There's no enforcement. So they like to say it's not an agriculture issue. Again, if it affects farms, it is. And we do believe the ag commissioner has some powers I can't unilaterally stop. I wish I could. That'd be convenient. But we can definitely delay. And with AI being a bubble, delaying it is effectively stopping it.
Amen.
Because time is on our side. It is not on theirs, and they know it.
Amen. Totally agree with that. Let's talk about some of the impact with respect to data centers. And let's start with the impact on water, especially because you're someone who's researched water a little bit too. So I imagine this is near and dear to your heart. And also you come from a small family farm. And also Texas is struggling with, let's just say, water resource availability. I come from the perspective that the natural world and God's creation is inherently abundant and self-generating. So it's less of a problem with nature not being able to provide enough water. It's the hoarding of water, the misuse of water, the pollution of water by many of man's wicked ways that is ultimately the problem. And with that being said, I'd love to hear how data centers sort of play into that.
So right now in the state of Texas, we don't have a water supply issue. We have a water management issue. Now in 10 to 20 years, it's going to become a supply issue if we grow, if we keep our current growth rate. And if the climate keeps shifting as it is, it will become a supply issue. But right now it's a management issue. And because of just general mismanagement, one gentleman out in Bay City said, we don't have a water conservation plan. We have a managed depletion plan. And that kind of struck me hard. When he said that, I'm like, ooh, that sounds true to me. But we're just not being conscious with how we use our water. And yeah, we as individuals might be doing that, and that's fantastic. But the big corporations are not. So, if you look at the city of Corpus Christi, you keep hearing that Corpus Christi about to run out of water. They were going to run out of water this year. All the rains bought them 12 to 18 months, probably. and they're building 3 data centers. Now, 80% of their water goes for oil production, which, I mean, look, we have to have it. If Corpus Christi goes down, we'll probably lose all of our jet fuel. Not all of it, but, airplane tickets are going to get oof.
With what our current systems rely on.
Yeah. 100%. So, and this isn't unique to just the Gulf areas. Like, we used to grow a lot of sugar and the RGV in South Texas. We no longer grow sugar at all. There is no Texas sugar anywhere anymore. And we're losing Texas citrus. If you go out towards Lubbock, there are cotton farmers actually going out of business because they just don't have the water. Even East Texas is running out of water. Slightly different reason there. That's because a couple billionaires, Kyle Bass and some other Wall Street folks, are basically building pumps to pump all the water out and sell it back to people.
No way.
Texas law. Once you build a well, you can pump as much as you want, which in the old days worked great.
See, philosophically, when it comes to men and women, like small families, I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah,
now, I would
100%.
question their ability to steward the land, but from my sort of libertarian perspective, I like that. It's your land, you do what you want with it. The problem is when it's land that is not owned by men and women, but multinational corporations with billions of dollars that have an extractive attitude rather than an attitude of stewardship with respect to the land.
Because Wall Street is seeing water as the next big commodity. So they're buying up water rights. This isn't unique to Texas. This is happening everywhere. So their plan is to drain us dry and sell us back our water.
Can I actually share something related to that real quick? I wish my buddy Tyler was able to sit in this chair. He was going to be here with us, but he actually just moved to Tennessee. One of the reasons is because he lives in an area of Austin that the city water is not the Austin city water that he uses. It's some multinational corporation who has bought the what do I want to say, the water management company in his area. And they've been dealing with insane amounts of water pollution. And what he has found in his research is that this is a national problem where a lot of multinational corporations who ultimately feed back to BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are buying up water utility services essentially across the United States right now, and then driving up the price of water, driving up the cost of water, also polluting the water. Oftentimes they're giving the water rights over to data centers and to industry, to other multinational corporations that they also own in other areas. And they're pushing the common men and women out to where their water is being polluted to the degree that people are just deciding to move away because there's nothing that they can do about their water pollution issue. Even if they have some filtration systems, the filtration systems are breaking and things like this. And then also because the water prices are skyrocketing in those areas.
Yeah, because even, this ain't quite Texas, but our neighbors in New Mexico, their governor is opening up their entire utility up to BlackRock. So BlackRock is about to buy their entire state water utility. And yeah, look, if they dump forever chemicals like PFAS, there are 15,000 different forever chemicals, 15,000 different PFAS. We can filter out maybe 5 of those 15,000. But if you dump those all 15,000, there's no filter on this planet that can get them all. And those things are toxic up to the parts per trillion, right? There's literally no known safe amount of forever chemicals. And they're in everything, including our water.
Right. So when it comes to data centers, the stated reason for the need to consume this amount of water is to cool the mechanical aspects of them, correct?
That is correct. Now, let's kind of dive a little bit into this because you'll often hear the term closed loop, right? So let's first define our terms. Open loop is what it sounds like. It's sometimes called evaporative cooling, where they just run water through some pipes, the water turns to steam, and then just let the steam go. Those systems are very efficient when it comes to electricity, but obviously very inefficient when it comes to water, of course. Then you have closed loop systems, which it depends on how they're done because there's multiple types of closed loops. So there will be one loop that is fully closed, but sometimes they'll have a second loop that's completely open. Now, there are times where the loop is 100% closed. That is true. However, because those temperatures are so hot, those pipes degrade and you get a lot of forever chemicals, a lot of heavy metals, and those chips are so fragile that you can't let those chemicals be in there. Sometimes that water has to be more pure than your average drinking water. So they have to flush it, Of course, they'll say on paper they'll get rid of it in a nice way. We all know they're just going to dump it in a creek. And here's the other deal with closed loop. It's actually a shift of hands, right? So yes, they might use less water at the data center facility itself, but they require a whole lot more power. If that power comes from coal, gas, or nuclear, it all does in the state of Texas, those use incredible amounts of water for cooling. So you basically move the water use from one area to another area, and the data centers never tell you that.
God, man. Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rush diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the New Biology Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The New Biology Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the New Biology Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, F-O-R-W-A-R-D, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and New Biology Clinic helps you remember. Okay, so just a quick one, because I want to get into energy here in a minute, but because we're on that topic, what impact does this have on the energy companies in Texas from your perspective?
Oh boy. You can expect your power bills to go up, possibly by double. Even the transmission lines they're building.
Yep.
So our most amount of electricity we ever used was 85 gigawatts in the state of Texas. Like, that's our all-time record. A gigawatt can power about a city of 1 million people. So the city of Austin recently reached 1 million. So the city of Austin is 1 gigawatt. If every single data center comes online, and I'm talking about every single one of them, not all of them will. A lot of them are fraud. A lot of them are fake. But if they all happen to be real, then that's 500 gigawatts. And we just... 85 to 500. And here's the deal about that. So the cores, right? So, you know, the thing in the middle that spins really, really quick.
Yeah.
The generator cores. We actually don't manufacture those. You grow them out of a crystal. I had no idea. I thought that was fascinating when I learned that. And it takes...
It's actually kind of cool in some respects.
It's actually pretty cool. But, you know, it takes 18 months to grow one of those crystals. And we are completely out until early 2030s because they bought them all. So even if we have to build a new power plant for a hospital, for something that we arguably is good for humanity, good for our country, we literally can't. Like, we are out of that ability. So that alone is actually going to cause power prices to go up. This is simple supply demand, right? So as our demand keeps going, but our supply can't grow as fast, that's going to cause an issue. A lot of the transmission lines, we found out recently that my ranch in Lampasas is at risk of a 765. Those are the big 300 massive ones that...
Our neighborhood is dealing with the same thing right now.
Yeah, the more I learn about those things, the more...
Yeah.
Ooh, they're bad.
Dude, even a lot of my neighbors who tend to think I'm a little bit crazy, but, respect me, had a lot of conversations about the transmission lines and their impact on human health, their impact on the environment, their impact on animals, and it's tremendously negative.
Have you heard how they affect pipelines?
No.
So if a pipeline is not shielded correctly, and I'm talking like an oil pipeline or gas pipeline, and it's Texas, none of them are shielded correctly. The electromagnetism from those 765 actually corrodes the pipe. And they cross those pipelines, like pipeline, I think like Matador, and they cross multiple points, is going to corrode that pipe. So it's only a matter of time before we have a Deepwater Horizon style event in the middle of Texas.
God dang, man. And so from your perspective, the main reason for these transmission lines being necessary is because of the data center production? Or would you say, okay.
Yeah. So if you look at where they're going, they're starting in the Permian Basin, extremely energy rich area. I mean, Permian Basin's keeping our country going right now. There's 3 of them. One goes to San Antonio. They're building at least 30 gigawatts of data centers. So
gosh dang, man.
Probably a dozen or so.
That's already nearly double what Texas is. Like, that's insane.
The next one is Temple, where they're building at least 8 that we are aware of. And the next one goes through Granbury, where they're building a lot, and the south of Dallas, where they're building a lot as well. And so they're going from energy-rich areas to those areas. They're planning to build some more interconnections, but here's the fun part. And this part will probably infuriate you the most. These lines are very likely illegal because the state legislature, the state government said, we need you to fix this regional problem in the Permian Basin with new transmission lines. They only gave the authority to these Austin bureaucrats at PUC and ERCOT to build in the Permian Basin to fix an issue. But now they're building these lines throughout Texas, and they literally don't have the legal authority to do so. They're just, this is like one of those bureaucratic things that's gone awry. They've probably been bought. I have no evidence of that, but we'll call it instinct, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's out of control.
Unreal, man.
Mm-hmm.
And from my understanding, in some cases, government is pulling eminent domain in order to put up these transmission lines, literally like creating an easement on people's property, some of which are farmers who are understandably fearful of the impact on their cattle, on their goats, whatever animals they have on their property. But the government is still going through in some cases and pulling eminent domain and putting an easement on their property and running a transmission line through it.
I remember I was at it was kind of funny. It was a goat conference, a goat and sheep conference in San Angelo. And there's this one guy talking about law. And at the time, he wasn't really talking about data centers. He was talking about wind and solar and eminent domain. And he said, Texas is a business state, but not a small business state. It's a big business state. And the big businesses will always get what they want. And that's where eminent domain's been used the most. And look, is there sometimes a good use of eminent domain? Maybe. I don't want to say yes. I don't want to say no. In theory, let's put it, in theory, maybe. But from my perspective, a lot of eminent domain has been pretty badly abused, really towards family farmers in particular, and also Black and brown communities and poor communities. It's really going after a lot of folks. I mean, look at I-35. It destroyed entire neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And now these data centers are destroying rural towns, and it's just the insult never ends.
Amen. One thing about the water. So I'm going to share something in the show notes. It's a report that was created by a friend of mine named Hakeem Anwar. I sent it to you earlier this morning.
Great report.
Yeah, it's
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, incredible report. He was the other person that I asked to possibly come, but I contacted him at the last minute, so he wasn't able to. He lives in Texas as well. He's an awesome dude. Had him on talking about digital surveillance and privacy, and he's developed a lot of alternatives. He has a phone called Above Phone. He has a computer called Above Book, and it's to thwart this sort of digital surveillance. It's really cool. I can share some resources on it. But he created this report, which I'll link in the show notes. And one of the things in the report that he talks about, and I don't know how many other states something like this applies to, but I do know that according to the report, Texas is the only U.S. state that uses an unmodified, quote unquote, absolute dominion, essentially rule of capture doctrine. If you own the land, you own the groundwater beneath it with no legal duty to neighbors. And even aside from this whole data center conversation, with, as you said, Texas being a state for business, not just business though, big business, which overwhelmingly from my perspective doesn't seem to care about their extractive attitude towards resources in certain locations. They definitely don't have a stewardship approach when it comes to the land that they own, is incredibly problematic. That idea is insane when it comes to multinational corporations polluting the environment. So if you want to comment on that, great. I'd love to hear about that and what you think about it with respect to the data center conversation as well.
One of the reasons I love small businesses, family businesses, is they keep their money local. Because that's the way our economy used to work from 30s, 40s-ish. This is not the first time we've been in a gilded era. First time was the 1880s, 3 men owned half the wealth. Everything was a monopoly. Literally everything was, they were a lot more blunt about it back then.
Yeah.
They hide it a lot better through shell companies, but everything then was a monopoly. So all that money went from local to Wall Street.
Yeah.
Like that was a steady extraction of just resources, but of money as well. Then we busted the monopolies. We were really doing a pretty good job at busting them. It was Republicans busting them. It was Democrats busting them. Everyone was busting monopolies. And then money started staying local. So if you spent $1 in Georgetown, that dollar stayed in Georgetown. If you spent $1 in Lubbock, that money stayed in Lubbock. We're now back to that monopoly, and data centers about to make it significantly worse. Or throwing gasoline on this fire, where all the money we spent is ultimately going to be funneled back to either Wall Street or Silicon Valley or both. So, and that's why that's why they also hate local businesses, because they can't capture that money.
Yeah.
At least not as easily.
Is there anything else related to water that is top of mind that you want to discuss related to data centers?
So I mentioned earlier that they don't really need to use water. Like this whole open loop, closed loop is largely a distraction. There are some folks down in the Houston area that are creating a new type of data center, right? There's actually 2 technological developments coming that are both very interesting. One is, so right now, when water flows through, it throws a bunch of little pipes that is run back and forth. Well, you could submerge the entire data center into a dielectric fluid, and it actually looks like hemp oil might be the best option.
Okay.
So what I would like to see is, again, let's just have a couple years pause, work this stuff out, but then have it where you don't use water at all. De-water is a term they sometimes use, where instead of water, you use hemp oil, and have a rule that hemp has to be grown locally, processed locally, and ideally processed by a co-op or something that's, or at least a mom and pop business, right? Something local. And you could just not use water at all. There's still the power aspect, but this is where the other technological development. So the reason these things create so much noise, which I'm certain we'll talk about in a bit, and the reason they require so much water and power is because they run extraordinarily hot and they have to have the cooling. The part in the computer chip, the part in the GPU that gets hot is the copper. None of the other parts of that GPU get hot. It's literally just a little copper wiring. Well, we have a couple folks, they're replacing the copper wiring with fiber optics, which do not heat up at all. So it's a zero heat data center computer chip. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that because they don't get hot, you don't need any power. You're talking like 1%, maybe up to 2 or 3% of the current power needs. So from a gigawatt down to a megawatt. It also means that you don't need water. You might not even need hemp oil that much. It also means that instead of having one that's, acres upon acres upon acres, the one up in Amarillo is about 5 miles long.
5 miles?
Yeah, if you're driving down the interstate, it takes you 5 full minutes to get past it.
Oh my goodness.
You can go from that size down to a closet because you can really condense them. Now, that doesn't resolve the use issues, the surveillance, the mass automation, all that stuff. We should still, even if we had that technology, I would still want to pause to figure that part out.
I appreciate you saying that, because that's what I was going to ask. Right.
It's not jump the gun here.
Right.
But, those 2 technological innovations will probably resolve most of the resource problem. Use problem, not so much. If anything, they actually might hurt that because we'll be able to accelerate faster. But that's why, again, I would prefer a 3 to 5 year pause I'll take what I can get. But that's what I would prefer.
It sort of begs the question, if that technology exists, and I do wonder if there is an argument on their side, which I don't really care for, that, well, it's more cost effective to use the current model of data centers that we have. But setting that aside, if there is the technology available to both cool it without water and then also to use power that doesn't heat up and also condense it down to the size that you're indicating, why aren't they approaching it that way? Especially when you have the context of what the data centers are being used for by their own words of some of these executives. It really does create the picture, in my opinion, this is pure speculation, but I think it's pretty obvious, that it is about power and control and trying to squeeze the average American and trying to usher them into this digital surveillance state with a UBI and all the things that we mentioned earlier. Like, I don't know what other conclusion you can come to if that is all the things that are possibly available, these people in Houston that you're talking about. I'm sure a lot of these executives and general contractors that are building these facilities are somewhat aware of it, at the least. So why aren't they moving that direction? And it sort of brings those questions up. I don't know if I worded that well enough, but I think you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. Well, first off, those poor babies, they don't want to spend an extra couple $1 million, even though they're spending trillions of dollars on this.
Right.
So partly is about money. The other part is just, again, for the longest time, the rules are for me and you and for our listeners, but they're not for them. Like, the rules and laws have not applied to the Epstein class for a very long time. This isn't new. This has been going on for a long, long time. It's been going on under both political parties. Yep. And it's just like, this is one of the things we have to fight, because it's like the rules should be for everyone. If there's a rule, it should be for literally everybody.
Yeah.
And if, like, for everyone or for no one. Let's be real about it.
100%.
So they just don't think they have to. And frankly, they don't have to, because we're not forcing them. Right. And our government's actually kind of encouraging them to do whatever they want.
Yeah, man. With the whole Epstein thing, it really is like a demoralization ritual. That's what I think it is more than anything. It's not only that, look what we've been doing, and there's nothing you can do about it. So for the people who are already awake to the government corruption and had a lingering thought or had heard some musings in some conspiracy circles that this might be going on, you're now vindicated and you're like, oh, now we can get justice. But then you see that, hey, we're doing this. It's out in the open. Everyone knows about it now, and there's nothing that you can do about it. That's the whole point, is to try to demoralize us. That's what I think.
Well, to demoralize is for them to win.
Yeah.
Like, that's all warfare is fundamentally psychological.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether that's an actual battlefield, like what we see what's going on elsewhere in the world, or if it's the battlefield of politics or the battlefield of media or anything like that. Everything is ultimately psychological. And when we feel defeatist, they win.
Amen.
And look, the way I always frame it, and I frame all of history this way, is everything is fundamentally organized people versus organized money, which is, in my view, the founding of our entire country.
Yeah.
The American revolutionaries were the organized people fighting the monopoly of and the organized money of the British crown. Like, the American Revolution was really literally a protest against monopolies, because that's what the British folks were doing. They were just monopolizing, or at least at that point in time. And in every right, liberty, and freedom any of us have is because of organized people fighting for it. Mm-hmm. And organized money has always been trying to fight. So every few generations, a new fight comes about. One time it was the populist. One time it was this folks or that folks. But every expansion of freedom has come at organized people. The organized money knows this, and that's why they go so heavy into this divide and distract. Or divide and conquer. A divided people are a conquered people. So they probably going to get myself a little bit in trouble for this one. But my inner farmer, I like calling a spade I like to call it as I see it. Whether I'm right or wrong is up for people to decide. Is a lot of the left versus right, red versus blue divide, the elites are the same people.
Amen.
Largely. I mean, there might be like one or two differences.
There's little skirmishes here and there possibly.
But largely a lot of the elites are the same people. A lot of the elites donate to both sides of the aisle. So they just get the left versus right to fight each other. And I think this is one of the reasons the data center things is scaring the dickens out of them, because the left and the right are like, wait a minute. I've never seen anything more cross-partisan. I don't like the word bipartisan because there's more than just two. right?
Totally.
So it's the most cross-partisan issue I've ever seen in my life. And I think that's why the elite are getting very, very scared, because it's breaking that, oh, wait, all of this fighting. I mean, they'll like throw red meat towards their bases, and then they'll still like sell us out to corporations.
Yeah.
Like both sides do that.
The gig is up in most cases now. I think a lot of people are waking up to it.
People are waking up.
And I want to talk about that later on in this conversation on like what we can do as an organized people to prohibit these things from occurring. I want to talk next about pollution when it comes to the environment, because I've heard you talk on some of the reels that you posted on Instagram, which are fantastic, by the way. That's how I found you, is just you sharing your perspective and your knowledge and what you've gathered from other people who are suffering real impacts related to the data centers that have already been put in place. And specifically, I'd like to start with the impact on livestock, the impact on animals and the environment, and what you've been hearing from people who are actually on the ground with farms near these data centers.
So first, let's say we need more data on this. We need more data on the data centers. And again, I'm not talking about the old data banks that are like here 10 years ago. I'm talking about the new ones. This also applies for the BESS facilities, the big battery facilities. They don't create as much noise. They don't create as much pollution, but it's still, lithium is a terrible mineral for batteries. Maybe one day we'll get a good battery technology. Lithium ain't it.
That's also in a separate conversation. That is also a false dilemma of oil and gas versus electric, because there's someone by the name of Nikola Tesla and many other people like him who are able to essentially generate free energy. But that's a whole seprate conversation.
Another conversation, a little above my pay grade. I know enough to talk about it for a bit, but getting someone in the industry would probably be a little bit better.
Right.
But anyway, so we are hearing some major horror stories from folks. So here's a couple of them. Actually, one of them we just learned about yesterday. So there's one that's kind of making his rounds now. There's this farmer who lives north of Dallas. He wasn't born a farmer, but he always wanted to farm. So he worked his entire life in Dallas. And then when he retired, he was very financially responsible. He really had a fantastic nest egg. So he bought a farm north of Dallas, up in a rural area. And he had a bunch of cattle. His grandkids would visit him all the time. And he was just living his absolute best life. He was so happy. And his cows would sleep in this little beautiful meadow with a creek. And then one of the BESS facilities, again, very similar to a data center in terms of noise and pollution, appeared right across the street. And the noise these things create is kind of hard to describe. There's two types of noise. There's the noise we hear, which is a lot like a vacuum cleaner that goes on 24/7, but then there's the subsonic noise. You know, when a car drives by and has like a really big subwoofer and you can like feel, you don't really hear it, but you feel it.
Yeah.
And you can feel it through your walls.
Yep.
You can feel it through your car. Imagine that 24/7, never stops.
That's insane.
This is particularly true for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's actually one of the worst ones in this.
Interesting.
Yep.
Bitcoin mining specifically.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say they're probably, AI data centers should probably be worse than them, but then it's Bitcoin, and then further down it's BESS. Not as bad, but still not great.
That's interesting to know.
And his cows started acting really funny, because cows and a lot of animals have better hearing than we do. So they started not sleeping in that meadow. They were sleeping on the barbed wire on the far side of the ranch. I raise cows. They do not like touching barbed wire. It's sharp. It's pointy. They don't like it. And they just, that's just not how they operate. And then that stress started causing his cows to have stillbirths. So he was losing all these calves all the time. And he was thinking, well, if it's harming the cows, what is it going to be doing to my grandkids? What is it going to be doing to me? Because if it's harming the fertility of his animals, what about his kids? We're already in a little bit, and I think a little bit's probably of an understatement if we're being honest, of a fertility crisis going on. Not just here, a lot of places, a lot of reasons. Food and chemicals are probably the biggest ones.
Yep.
But point being that he ended up having to sell out. But these things, because of that noise, plummet your property values. So he lost about $100,000.
Wow, man.
Now, he was fortunate. He had the financial means to get out. Could he do it again? Probably not. But he was able to do it once. And his next ranch, he told me, it's not bad, but it wasn't what it was. There's these other folks I talked to. They live kind of near the Granbury area. And it was a mother and daughter, 8-year-old kid. And the mother would have they lived next to a data center, and the mother had constant migraines, like the status migraines. Took all these medicines, nothing ever worked. Just had them all the time. Her kids started getting constant ear infections, just over and over. And it got to the point where we're like, okay, we're moving. She lost maybe like $10,000 in the deal, and that really, really hurt them really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to the point she might not be able to retire at any reasonable time. And they moved away. No more migraines for her. Her kids stopped having medical issues, stopped having those ear infections. Guess what's being built right across their fence?
A data center.
And then one new call we got this one about 3 days ago. And I want to say for the folks who are fighting these data centers, like we're particularly in Texas, like we are building something really special because we're getting calls from all across the United States. This call actually came from Canada.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was not expecting it. And we were talking to this gentleman. It's actually the daughter. We were talking to the daughter. And she was saying that they were sheep farmers. They farmed a lot of sheep. And I can't remember exactly what kind of facility it was, data center like. And they lost about 500 sheep because their sheep that started acting weird. They started getting all these medical issues. Sheep are particularly prone to those. And they were losing all these sheep. And then her father got early-onset dementia.
Wow.
And that's the thing. We're seeing reports of heart murmurs in kids. We're seeing reports of early-onset dementia. And it could be because of the noise and vibrations. It could be because no one can sleep. Like we don't 100% know. I would imagine it's probably both.
Mm-hmm.
But with chickens, we're hearing stories that chickens lay a lot less eggs. We're hearing that horses, and some of these are being built in horse country. There's not many horse places left, but like near Weatherford, big horse country up there. They're building those things next to horse ranches. And horses in particular are very susceptible to that stress. So if we get all these built, I mean, this is just in my personal view, this is purely in my opinion. I have absolutely no evidence of this. So, disclaimer, that there's been a systematic targeting and destruction of family farms, not just in the United States, but throughout all the Americas.
Yeah.
Family farms in Mexico got wiped out. Family farms in Canada didn't do as bad, but, they got hurt as well. Brazil, Argentina, all throughout the America, there's been a systematic elimination of family farms.
Yep.
I feel like this is a part of that trend. I feel like this is another way that a lot of family farms get wiped out.
I think in the last year, there's been, if I remember correctly, I wrote an article about this, but it's something to the effect of there's been a 32% increase or 35% increase in the last calendar year of family farms filing for one of the chapter types of bankruptcy. So an astronomical increase. And there was already a huge problem where I think 1 in 5 family farms have been lost in the past 10 years or something like that. It's all in my article, which I can link in the show notes,
yeah.
But there's some really scary numbers related to that.
We're losing between 50 to 70 a week right now. Since the 1970s, the whole get bigger, get out scheme, it's really in the 1970s is where things took a turn. Even if you look at like wages, I'm having a slight ADHD moment, but I watched this one video of a guy talking like if wages followed productivity productivity from the 1970s, the average wage right now is $60,000. It would be $120,000.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
So, but since the 1970s, going back to after jumping down that rabbit hole, we've lost, I want to say 250,000 family farms in Texas alone.
I got my phone where I can read the actual post, but the exact numbers are over the last 5 years, just speaking to America specifically, has lost roughly 150,000 independent family farms. And in the last year, U.S. Chapter 12 family farm bankruptcies have surged by, 46%. I said 35, 46%, while sector-wide agricultural debt has climbed to a record-breaking $624 billion.
And with the current inflation we're seeing because of the Iran war, a lot of our fertilizer and other key components went through Strait of Hormuz. That got shut off. So, I mean, we have some domestic production. So we'll be able to feed ourselves. We'll see a famine in other parts of the world. We won't see it here. But
it'll still impact food prices across the world, though. That's the reality.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like drastically impacting food prices.
Which is, with my family, you might find this a fun little story about this. So we've been a conventional cattle ranch for quite a while. And I've been studying up on whether you want to call it regenerative or sustainable or chemical free or the way my old papa farmed before World War II. However you want to call it. We act like it's new. It's really not.
It's not at all.
And I was like, hey, I think there's something to this. Let's do this. Well, after annoying my family for about a year, they shut me up. They're like, okay, here's a plot of land. Here's like part of you can have this little part of the ranch. Just do what you want. Leave us alone. So I cut it up into multiple paddocks. I heavily rotate. I stopped all chemical use. If I wanted a plant gone, I pulled it out by hand or I cut it down by hand. But I got multiple animals, multiple species. That's where the goats come in. And after 1 year, literally just 1 year, while their grasses were up to their ankles, mine got up to my knees. And they're like, "How you've been doing that?" I've been trying to tell you. Point being, because we don't use any chemicals, we don't use any fertilizer. If I want to use a fertilizer, I make it composty, right?
Amazing.
I make it myself.
Yep.
So, basically free. You have to get the bins, but otherwise it's more or less free. So I think, so for us, our family ranch, the inflation's not hurting us. It's not even hitting us. We barely even notice it. And I think this is going to be a fantastic time for a lot of farmers and ranchers to make the transition. And a lot of them do. A lot of them
want to as well. But the problem is that conventional farming practices are subsidized by the government and they want to switch to regenerative because they see all the problems. They've heard Dr. Zach Bush on a variety of podcasts and other people talking about the impact on soil and what that looks like 60 years down the road and whether we'll have any crop yield at all domestically if we continue along with these conventional practices. But again, the modern farmer is being squeezed so much to switch to regenerative practices in many cases is just so incredibly hard. They're just trying to stay afloat.
There are 3 categories of farms. Animal agriculture is probably the easiest to switch over.
Yeah.
So we could very easily switch over a lot of our cattle and our goats and our sheep and everything else. I'm not going to call it easy. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy.
Amen.
But it can be done. Then you got the middle category that will be a little bit harder. And then you have the heavily, heavily dependent. And look, using these chemicals, it's like a drug addiction. If you go cold turkey too quick, it could cause a lot more problems.
Yep.
So those 3 categories, one is we could theoretically get off of the chemicals within 1 year. The second batch, that's maybe more like a 1 to 3 year. And then the other one is like 3 to 5. Within 5 years, I do believe we could get fully off of it. And the point is, while doing this, is making sure we don't bankrupt any of our family farms, but also if we spike food inflation, and if that spike is blamed towards regenerative ranching, that destroys the movement. Like you got to keep that popular support.
And that's the pickle that a lot of farms are in, having to play this stupid political game too, and the regenerative movement, especially when the Trump administration now just gave protections to pesticide companies,
particularly glyphosate.
Particularly
Roundup.
Glyphosate. Yeah, exactly. It's just bringing that into the context. It's just, farmers these days, I feel for them, man. I'm friends with, as I said, Molly and Ryland Englehart. They're fighting a freaking uphill battle because they're doing it the right way. They're doing it regenerative and they're barely making freaking ends meet. And they're an awesome farm. They've been doing it for a long time. I was able to go look at Molly's property in Fillmore, California before she had to move her operations to Texas. And it literally looked like the Garden of Eden, dude. It was incredible. It is incredible what you can do with truly regenerative practices, but it's this uphill battle that has to be fought in order to do it at scale. Again, if you're growing fruits and vegetables for your family and just providing sustenance there, that's a different category. But if you're trying to reach a certain crop yield and then you're not subsidized by the government, that can be incredibly problematic.
Yeah. And a lot of the big ag companies, the chemical companies, are become real hard. The chemical companies and the ag companies, let's call them the monopolies. I don't want anyone to confuse like a mom and pop or even a medium-sized business with a monopoly.
Yeah.
The monopolies have rigged the system so much where they basically have turned farmers into pass-through income. So people will say, particularly folks in cities will say, well, the farmers get all this support. On paper, yes, they do. However, the companies have figured out the exact, if they know you're going to make $500 an acre on whatever product, whatever commodity, they're going to charge you $499, right? So the farmer only gets like $1 or maybe $10 of that.
Yep.
So the moment the government gives farmers the money, the farmers immediately pay the agrochemical companies, the monopolies. So, we're going to have a number of fights there. They already hate me and I already hate them. So, it's a mutual thing.
That's good that you've already established that. That's a good sign in my book, man. I think most people would agree with that. So we can set that aside. And if we have time to later, I'd like to revisit that, just like the agricultural side of things, like what you would like to do to help regenerative practices grow in the state of Texas and then also just in the United States in general. But I want to get back to the polluting of the pollution that data centers cause in the environment. If I remember correctly, and I don't know if there's any validity to this, I know that I saw a post where a farmer was saying that ever since the data center popped up in his area, he has had 0 cows give birth.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a true report, or is there any validity to that?
It could be true.
Okay.
I mean, that's the story I've heard. It's a story I may have told a couple times on the campaign trail. So have I independently verified it? It's hard to verify all these things. So, I mean, I always have a grain of salt with everything. I think
that's an honest perspective.
Yeah. It's impossible to know anything 100%. That's my personal philosophy. It's always good to have at least a little bit of doubt, a little bit of skepticism. I've heard it. Even if it's not true, we should still stop the data centers.
Yeah.
Which prove it wrong.
Right.
Let's stop them. Make sure it works. Make sure that, verify it or don't verify it, and then continue on. Even
just the stated intentions alone of the data centers, like that should be enough to stop them. It's like crazy that, we feel the need to discuss all of these other problems. And with that being said, based on these BESS centers that you're talking about and the impacts that they've had on people, and then also just the reports you've already received at this point that have been validated to some degree and that you're hearing directly from the people who are being impacted by them, clearly they pose an impact negatively on biology in the natural world. I wonder how much, obviously there's the noise pollution even at the subsonic level where you may not be hearing it, but your body, your biology is definitely feeling it and then expressing physiological symptoms related to the common stress that it's under. A perfect example of this, or I guess you could say an ancillary to this, would be the LED lights, right? Like we don't notice anything consciously, any problem with LED lights. But then when we film these LED lights, and ironically, we're sitting under them right now in a studio, but that's okay if you're just using them temporarily for some time. Big advocate for getting in the sun. But if you film these in slow motion, they're flickering. That poses an impact on our biology, on our nervous system, where we're put in a fight or flight state. And then you go into all the blue light and things like this, hyper concentration of blue light. When we're in the sun, we get a full spectrum of light. The point that I'm making here is, even if you can't hear the noise from the data center, and I think a lot of people are reporting that they absolutely can, it's just like this low, dull hum in the background, your biology is also feeling it. And I also wonder too, if there's some problem with non-native EMF exposure or dirty electricity sort of polluting the environment. Have you heard of anything like that related to data centers?
I've heard it related to bees.
Okay. No, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
We lose bees. Well, we're going to have a lot bigger problems.
That's a huge deal. That's a massive deal. Yeah.
So bees and a lot of other pollinators, including some birds and other wildlife, probably humans to a degree as well. Not quite to that degree, but, still, the electromagnetism can hurt, particularly bees. So I've been hearing stories. We're already losing bees at a very concerning clip, mostly due to chemicals and neonicotinoids, but also possibly even these power lines as well. So it's just yet another reason that we should be putting brakes on this. But I also think about, so there's this house near Lampasas. I don't really want to say where exactly it is, but it's like right under these massive utility lines. Every person I know who has ever lived there dies of cancer.
Really?
It's like 3 people in a row.
No way.
Yeah, so maybe it's a coincidence. Or maybe it's not, which in my personal opinion, the fact that we don't bury all these lines really annoys me. That's something like, okay, well, we have billions of dollars in a rainy day fund, which is start burying all, and I'm not just talking about the big ones. I'm talking about even the small ones, bury them, put some shielding around them. So then just, nip this in the bud entirely.
Yep.
Because yeah, it'd be expensive up front. It'll pay for itself in 5 to 10 years.
100%. How important are minerals when it comes to how our body actually functions on a day-to-day basis? And how do we even begin approaching mineral sufficiency in the modern world? And are mineral supplements really the best approach to take when it comes to remineralizing? I recently sat down with Caroline Allen, the CEO and co-founder of Beam Minerals, for a conversation about the importance of proper mineralization and the role that humic and fulvic mineral complexes play in supporting overall health. Caroline has spent years studying minerals in human health and how modern food production, agricultural practices, and lifestyle factors have influenced mineral intake over time. Beam Minerals was created to provide a concentrated source of plant-based humic and fulvic mineral complexes designed to support the body's natural functions. I'd love for you to hear from Caroline so she can share about Beam Minerals and why humic and fulvic mineral complexes are so vitally important for our health. Here's a clip from that episode.
The ratio of minerals that you need in your cells is the same as the ratio that are needed in a tree, in a little plant, in a cow. At a cellular level, we all work the same. I met my business partner, Dan Howard, and he introduced me to these plant-based minerals. We need to bring these humic and fulvic molecules to the world because this is how we reconnect humanity with Earth. When they're in your body, they enhance so many things. They're meant to be in your body.
So if you're interested in checking out Beam Minerals, just head over to beamminerals.com and use code TWF20 at checkout for 20% off your order, or just head to the show notes. And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper on Beam Minerals, humic and fulvic mineral complexes and the importance that they play in our health and all the things related to that, check out episode 246 of the Way Forward podcast, where I had the chance to sit down with Caroline. So with the shielding, though, you're talking about some shielding mechanism where you use a certain type of metal that keeps the radiation within the lines. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
I mean, it could be as simple as aluminum foil. I'm not an engineer. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
But,
I get what you mean, though. Like that should be a no-brainer. That should be a standard when it comes to these.
It's a standard in most countries.
And it's wild because going back to just the water rights thing, I forget what it was called. Let me read it again. But I feel like the same sentiments apply to basically anything when it comes to the property that these multinational corporations own or the eminent domain that the government uses on their behalf. When it's, this absolute dominion rule of capture doctrine. If you own the land, you own the groundwater beneath it with no legal duty to the neighbors. That alone, I don't think we really close the loop on that. That is so disgusting that multinational corporations can effectively pollute the water on their land. And of course, that is going to impact the water aquifers in the surrounding area and then trickle down to possibly the rest of the state as well. And if not just this state, other states. But then it also applies when it comes to the use of these chemicals and things like this. And of course, again, eminent domain with these power lines and the dirty electricity that they produce. It's insane. It's insane.
You'll find this kind of funny. So way back when, oil actually had the right to capture as well. Right of dominion, that same thing applied to oil. Well, then the oil companies decide, oh, wait, this is actually a bad idea. We don't actually like this. So they changed it for oil, but they didn't change it for water.
The oil companies decided it was a bad idea.
Yeah. They're like, hey, this is hurting our business. We should actually not have the rule of capture for oil.
How is it hurting their business?
Basically, would say you bought this plot of land, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to put an oil well on it.
Uh-huh.
Well, your neighbor could put an oil well and then take all your oil and not pay you a nickel.
Oh.
So they did, if the oil is under your land, you own that oil. Even if someone else extracts it for you, they have to pay you. So if they got, let's say you own some land and your neighbor got 10,000 barrels from you, from your land, they have to pay you for that 10,000. So you get a check from them.
Okay.
So that's how it works for oil. A little bit of an oversimplification, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
But with water, I could drain your water and there's not a damn thing you could do about it. So we should probably go to more of a system like that. Again, I want us to be very cautious because I don't want to accidentally ruin any family farms or homesteaders or anyone else. But Wall Street is going to take all of our water if we don't stop this.
Yeah.
Like they figured out the loophole in the system and they are coming to exploit it. So we are going to have to figure something out.
What are some ideas you have running for agricultural commissioner? And again, I understand you don't have unilateral decision-making authority even if you get into that position. And I also question, we can talk about this later, how much one individual, even if they have a huge backing, can actually do when they get in those positions. And I have some precedent for that when it comes to the MAHA movement, which I can share later. But I would love to hear your ideas. In theory, if you are in that position and you do have the power that they claim that you have as agricultural commissioner.
Well, first off, any movement based on one person is not a movement.
Amen.
Like it's too fragile. So this is always a team effort. It's always been a team effort because again, organized people has to be. It's not organized person.
Right.
That's
right.
monarchy, and that's actually also organized money is usually organized person. Is usually one person with the money. But anyway, so the real change is going to have to come from the state government, being the Texas legislative, the governor, and lieutenant governor. They're the ones that are going to have to literally change the law, right? What I can do as ag commissioner, first off, you got the power of the bully pulpit. We've already stopped a couple of data centers using the power of the bully pulpit. I'm not even elected. The other thing we can do is called agricultural impact studies. Where basically unilaterally we can say, I want to study how this affects agriculture. Oh, you're about to take 1 billion gallons of water. I want to know how that affects a family farm. It's very similar to an environmental study. So we can actually get real data, not the data they'll write on a napkin and hand us. Most of their data, that's usually how it comes. Like, let's write this number in a napkin. That seems like a fair number. Don't trust anything you see from them. Trust but verify.
Yeah.
So we can do that. That will buy us some time. There's some other things we can do. If you live in a city, it'll help you, but you can't really be a part of it. But for folks who live out in the country, there's something called an ag development district or an ag district. We are testing this now in Waco area and near San Angelo, where a group of Texans can get together. You need like 10 people and they can create a little mini city-like entity where you can say, actually, we don't want you doing that. Or
Got it.
Actually, we want to know exactly how much power or water you're using, which is like one of the two main tools to stop data centers or BESS facility or whatever you want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one near Kerrville is about a BESS facility. The one near Waco is about a data center. So, but doing that, all of this is a bubble. And this isn't anything new. I mean, when tractors were first invented, it was a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
The Xerox machine was a bubble. The internet was a bubble. There's always that hype. Yeah. And people are like, the internet of the 1990s is so great. We can do anything with the internet of the 90s, which anyone around in the 90s would know. You really couldn't.
Yeah.
It was the 90s. The internet was not that great. Same with AI right now. In 20 years, it might be okay. But right now, it's just not there. But everyone knows it's a bubble. They're just trying to ride the wave and they hope to get out right when it peaks. Maybe one or two people time it right, but the vast majority of people don't. So we're seeing some early signs that bubble's actually bursting. Mm-hmm. You can tell by looking at the supply side, which, interestingly enough, the Iran war is probably causing it to burst.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
It's just a wild thing to consider, though, going back to the harm that these data centers cause, and this just applies to anything, again, within these industries, is that it seems like the onus is on the common person to try to fight an uphill battle to prove harm, whereas what it should be in an ideal system is that anyone who introduces something new into the environment, the onus should be on them to prove that it is actually safe for the environment, safe for biology, safe for people. But again, it's inverted where they already establish it, and then you have to fight an uphill battle as common people against multinational corporations to prove that thing that they've already established and they're already developing elsewhere is harmful. Like, it's so backwards from what it should be. Yeah.
All by design. And look, DC will not save us. Austin will not save it. The only person that's going to fix your backyard is yourself. Now, this isn't to say don't ask help from a neighbor. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I was probably like 10 years old or something. One of our neighbors, their field caught on fire. So my pawpaw and I grabbed the big jug of water, a burlap sack, a couple of them, and we took off down the road to help them out. And I asked Papa, well, why aren't we just waiting for the fire department? And he's like, well, neighbors help neighbors. That's what Texans do. So, like, I have no issue with people coming together. I think that's really important. But at the end of the day, only we are going to fix this. Like, I don't believe we have this like knight in shining armor complex. And
many people had that with Trump, man. Many people did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, It's just people had it with Obama as well.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
they have it with all these big figures. And like, I don't blame folks for having that complex. I mean, there's political people I really like, but it's also one of those don't meet your heroes kind of deal.
Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, people are people.
Yep.
No one's 100% wrong. No one's 100% right. No one's 100% good. No one's 100% evil, except for maybe some of the big tech folks. But
Yeah, my alarm bells went off on that one. I'm like, maybe some people at the tippy top. I know another big impact from an environmental perspective is the impact on the temperature in the immediate surroundings of these data centers. So what have you found with that?
So within a 5-mile radius, it could be more, it could be less, depending on the local environment. They will likely raise temperatures between 2 to 16 degrees localized. Because again, these things generate massive heat. The power generation, particularly if it's on site, produces a lot of heat. So last I checked, Texas is hot enough as it is.
My God,
we don't need to be
100%.
adding to that problem. And that, look, humans, we are uniquely adaptable. We can adapt to a lot of various temperatures. We can adapt to cold. We can adapt to hot. While, of course, I'm concerned how it affects kids and the elderly, we adults, by and large, will be mostly fine. Our plants and animals do not have that luxury. They are not anywhere. Humans are the most adaptable anything in this world. Like, we're more adaptable than plants and animals. Like, that's why we took over. One of the reasons. And a lot of plants don't have that luxury. So it could kill off a lot of trees. It could kill off a lot of bees. It could kill off a lot of pollinators. It could kill off a lot of crops. And a lot of wildlife will get chased away. So again...
Which impacts us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, even aside from feeling emotionally attached to what happens in nature, which we should, absolutely. But we live in a what word am I looking for? A interdependent relationship with the natural world. And if our natural environment surrounding us is being destroyed, that absolutely, without question, has a tremendous impact on ourselves and our biology.
Yeah.
Without question.
I never really understood why we take ourselves out in nature, because it's like, we are nature.
We are nature.
In some ways, like, if we really want to think about it, there's no such thing as man-made, because we are part of nature, so everything's natural. That's not to say everything's good.
Right.
Like, let's be very, very clear.
Right.
There's a lot of, what we like, quote, man-made, end quote, that are incredibly bad. Glyphosate, forever chemicals, data centers, the list continues. But yeah, this whole distinct, and I think that's one of the benefits of farming and farmers, is you learn very quick of like, oh, I'm fully a part of this natural process, particularly regenerative, because with the regenerative, you use nature, instead of using a chemical or a piece of equipment for things, you use nature to do the work for you.
Yeah. I like looking at it like God's creation on a spectrum and then man's creation over here. And I feel like the best forms of man's creation are those that try but fail, by the way. I just don't think that man can ever create something that matches the technological capacity inherent to God's creation. But with that being said, something that is man-made, in air quotes, if it is trying its best to mimic that which is found in the natural world from a benevolent intention perspective and not operating in a way to extract from the natural world, that's an okay man-made creation.
Airplane wings.
Yeah.
They figured out airplane wings, their shape of them, by looking at birds.
Great example.
So, yeah.
Great example. So another thing that data centers impact is our light environment. And man, this is one that I am very big on from, again, a biological perspective. Our light environment has a tremendous impact on our health. Again, human beings are incredibly adaptable and resilient. And with that being said, the amount of time we spend indoors, this is a whole separate conversation. The point that I'm getting at is this is something that I consider myself to be quite knowledgeable on and also very passionate about, health implications of light. And there's also just an annoyance factor when it comes to light pollution itself. I look at, for example, we spent some time at an Airbnb in Austin, and I feel for people who live in cities, and I don't know how many people that live in cities actually even really consider this, how wrong it is that when you go outside at night, you can't connect to the heavens above you and see the heavenly bodies in the sky. Like, I'll just say this. My 9-year-old son, the amount of times I've taken him outside to look at the stars, and then just from gazing at the stars above him, he turns to me and says some of the most wild things about the nature of reality that I'm like, how are you a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old saying some of the things you're saying? And I think it's like they're receiving direct inspiration from the heavens above. So there's that aspect, but I know that light pollution is a really big problem when it comes to data centers as well. So I'd just love to hear your perspective on that and what we're finding with these.
So when these data centers are built, they have lights go on 24/7, and they really are very, very bright. If you live close to one, it's basically a permanent daylight. And that really harms a lot of wildlife, in particular animals. I mean, people, you can technically, if you really want to, black out your shade, like the blackout shades. Not great, not what people should be forced to do, obviously.
How far away is it impacting though?
A couple miles. Yeah.
So even if you live 2 miles away from one of these data centers, the light pollution is still so substantial that it's impacting you that far away.
That's what I've been told.
My goodness, man.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep lights on and they just run those facilities 24/7. So you also get the noise too. So it's just, none of it's a good deal. And yeah, just talking about like us losing that night sky. I don't know if y'all have ever been to Big Bend. It's a spiritual place. Like, it's just, when you go there, it's so quiet and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So if anyone hasn't gone to Big Bend, please go while it's still a preserve. Hopefully it stays a preserve, but you never know these days.
Right.
But very, very spiritual place.
Yeah. And people can refer to my plenty of other episodes. I have one with Carrie Bennett and Sarah Kleiner, also Matt Maruka. We'll link some of those episodes in the show notes if you're interested and you haven't really explored the impact of light on your biology. But if you have this massive mile long facility a couple miles from you that is causing it to appear to be daylight 24/7 near you, just you can, I won't say rest assured because it's not an assurance thing. You can know that will absolutely impact your biology. So, man, I'll just say this. We just covered a variety of glaring issues with data centers. And again, we could and should stop at, well, they're for mass surveillance. And it's wild that it's not only about mass surveillance, it also has so many impacts on the natural world, on our biology, across almost every domain.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk about, and I wouldn't expect you to be an expert in this sort of thing because you're running for agricultural commissioner, you're looking at the impact on agriculture and the land, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd imagine you've done a little bit of research on how data centers relate to flock cameras, relate to Palantir, and the problems that those pose going into the future. Again, not expecting you to be an expert. I know we covered it just a little bit at the beginning, but I want to sort of get a full picture from your understanding of what that might look like in the future.
So the short answer is we don't know, and that's part of the problem. Now, Palantir is buying a lot of data. They're actually buying all the farm data. So they're integrating themselves not just within the military, but within USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture.
For what purpose?
The more they know, the more they control. My personal opinion, but also prove me wrong. But yeah, so these flock camera it's bigger than flock. I mean, everything we do, everything you type, even if you do like incognito window, that doesn't mean jack shit.
Doesn't matter.
You have to use a really good VPN. A couple VPNs have already been compromised.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the brands off the top of my head, so I can't recommend you there. But, just do your research before you get a VPN. A lot, if you can find a VPN primarily in Switzerland, I think those are still some of the good ones. A lot of them are based in countries that don't have a good track record of privacy.
Okay.
So they're being bought out. So having spent, I spent about 3 years of my life. I was raised as a farm kid. The moment I could put on a pair of boots and some gloves, I was out helping my pawpaw gather hay and take care of the animals. I always loved animals. And then I ended up going into school and did international trade. So because of that, I had to live abroad. And I lived in Asia. I spent about 3 years of my life there. I saw countries that are free. I saw some countries that I would actually argue might be a little bit more free than the United States.
I believe that.
And I saw countries that were completely not free, that were extremely communist, extremely authoritarian, extremely a mix of the two. And what I'm seeing now with Flock, with the trackers, with surveillance, with the complete disregard for property rights. Because in those authoritarian countries, when they want something built, they'll give you an eviction notice.
Yeah.
They don't care.
And they're effectively doing that. Maybe they're not giving people an eviction notice, but they're making it so incredibly hard to stay in that spot that they ultimately have to leave.
Yeah. A lot of countries, they will literally just show up with a bus and throw you in and, off you go.
Insane.
Not all of them, but, a lot of them that way. And this, our property rights are being degraded. We're being tracked more and more. And a lot of this data, we don't know where it's going or who's using it. We don't even know if it's staying in the United States. There's some Flock contracts that I've heard of that some that information might not even stay in the United States. It might go to other countries, which I think is a big problem. So it's just, there's so much going on. And I think COVID awoke a lot of folks to that. I think the data centers are waking up even more folks to this. And is really uniting folks that we just need a complete pause on all this, which really rethink of what this means, because we don't want to. No one wants to accidentally create a mass surveillance state.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for literally 95% of all Texans.
Right.
Maybe 5% want it, but the vast majority.
I can't even imagine 5% wanting it, man.
There are some interesting folks out there.
I'm sure you've encountered them on your campaign trail.
There are some very interesting folks.
Yeah.
We'll be really vibing really well. And then they say something. I'm just like, what?
Wait, whoa, you just said that? Right.
Yeah. I'm like, that's an interesting take.
Yeah. Man.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It happens on people really good conversation veer real far this way or veer real far that way. Or sometimes they go up or down and just, you don't even see it coming.
Yeah.
But
so essentially the data centers, from my understanding, are intended to be processing all of the data that will come in or is already coming in with the surveillance infrastructure that is being put in place. That is literally what they're being used for.
We have all the data centers we need for cat videos.
Yeah.
We don't need any more. We have all the surveillance or all the data centers we need for. We might need one or two more for the military in theory. I'm not convinced of that.
I don't even know about that either,
though. I'm open to a discussion on that point because I don't really know 100% enough about that. But the data centers that we don't have enough for is AGI or superintelligence, artificial general intelligence. We don't have enough yet for mass surveillance, and we don't have enough yet for mass automation.
So that's what it's for.
In my opinion. And also, if you listen to what the big tech folks say, it's also in their opinion.
That's literally what they're saying.
Yeah, that's literally, Listen to Peter Thiel, listen to Larry Ellison, listen to, oh God, what's that guy's name?
Dario Amodei.
Dario Amodei.
Yeah.
Now, OpenAI, they're a little bit more discreet. They're a little bit better at keeping their mouth shut. But even they're kind of starting to.
They're pretty sketchy though, too.
Oh.
They're incredibly sketchy.
Oh, there's some really.
Aren't they one of the most sketchy ones?
Well, because they've lied the most about it. I mean, they started off as a nonprofit, and they legit did start off as a nonprofit. But now they're a corporation. They basically went corporate. And the CEO, I've been hearing reports, he's been having a slush fund. So some of the money went to a slush fund instead. But there's more and more whistleblowers. And they've been on a number of other podcasts. And if you can get some, that would actually be great as well. They could really go into the history of it.
One more thing that I'd like to talk about with the data centers, and it really is a window into how much multinational corporations control the government, or you could say that they work hand in hand. I like to look at it as so many of our government agencies and individuals working in those agencies, both at the state level and at the federal level, and really at the international level at this point, are in bed with multinational corporations in a variety of ways. And I know we've already talked about it when it comes to both your opponent for the agricultural commissioner and also with some of these county commissioners and things like this receiving back-end deals from people who are in bed with data centers and big tech and things like this. But it's the government tax breaks and also government incentives, you could argue, with respect to the construction of these data centers. I'd love to hear what you've learned about that.
Well, it's continuous government handouts for them, and they go pound rocks to the rest of us. I mean, this is the whole reason why we don't have the money to fix our roads or why our pipes are still leaking, because we keep giving all these handouts to corporations who don't even need it, corporations who aren't even American. And look, these folks are they're spending billions and trillions of dollars. They don't need any sort of handouts at all from us. So in the state of Texas, they've gotten $1 billion of government handouts up to this point.
$1 billion in government handouts.
Probably more, because it's really hard to get that full number. But that's billion is state only. Yeah, we're not even talking about the locals. That I would imagine probably, I'm guessing here, 2 to 4 billion.
Really? Now, in local handouts.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I mean, it's
dang,
just,
man.
You know,
that shows you that local politics are just as corrupt, man. Like, that's crazy.
They're buying out everyone from city council all the way up.
That's insane.
And look, again, it's the law and paying taxes. Like, that is stringent for you and I and the rest of your listeners. Like, we have to pay our taxes. We have to obey the law or else. For them, taxes is a recommendation. It's a strongly worded letter. And the law is also a strongly worded letter that has no teeth. Like, oh, how dare you not do this?
Right.
There was I'm not going to name names with this conversation because I technically wasn't supposed to hear it, but I just think it's so on point what's going on here. So these 2 state representatives were having lunch, a Democrat and a Republican. And the Democrat basically was asking the Republican, why do you trust these data centers not to take our things? And the other one's like, well, because I told them not to. I'm like, you do realize they could just do it anyway. He's like, oh no, they wouldn't do that. I told them not to. It's like,
that's ridiculous. No teeth. That's what you mean by no teeth.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero teeth. And in some cases, going back to my friend Hakeem's report, which is in the show notes. So if you look at page 91, so chapter 312 is Texas's local property tax abatement tool, framed by the state comptroller as an economic development mechanism. The report finds these details often carry no hard requirements, and that'll make sense here in a second. Basically, an example that the report uses is that Bosque County, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Bosque.
Yeah, Bosque. Is that how you pronounce it? Bosque? Okay, interesting. Bosque County gave Cirrus One's Dallas-Fort Worth 10 data center a 10-year, 30% property tax waiver on buildings/structures with only soft asks like use reasonable efforts or make reasonable efforts to use local vendors and no firm local hiring mandate. So basically like, hey, please just try to do this as best as you possibly can, and we'll give you these massive tax incentives and tax breaks.
Meanwhile, the locals have to pay for everything else.
Yeah.
It's because there's a couple things we didn't talk about that kind of go into this issue. One of the reasons why we need them to be paying their taxes is particularly to local fire departments. So when a data center, particularly a BESS center, BESSes are actually worse. When they catch on fire, Godspeed. There's not a damn thing. You can pour sand on it. You can't pour water on it.
Because of all the batteries in there. And how
lithium.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you pour water on burning lithium, it literally creates a chemical explosion. Like you can't do it. So you just let it burn. So there's a data center, I want to say it's an Amazon data center up in Ohio that's caught fire 80 times.
80 times.
So when they catch on fire, particularly in small communities with, volunteer fire departments that have no equipment, if those things catch on fire, there's not a damn thing you can do. It'll be burning. It'll be releasing all these toxins. I'm talking heavy metals, heavy toxins, things that will, if you breathe it in, you just lost a year of your life sort of deal. And I feel for these folks, and I feel for the fire folks as well, because if they try to fight it, it's going to be, like when the 9/11, those firefighters, a lot of them died very young. It's going to be that. But for this.
And we're talking about 3 to 4 to 5 mile long facilities in some cases too.
Yeah.
Imagine that catching on fire.
Grasslands.
Yeah.
That, they burn. Forest fires and prairie fires are a natural part of actually we kind of need more prescribed burning. Prescribed burning is a fantastic tool. We've gone a little too long without it. That's why we're having some issues. We can talk about that later or, Google it. But yeah, it's just none of that's good. But it's also causing other issues. And this is actually something that very few people actually talk about, that it's causing massive inflation that's hurting small businesses, particularly with computer and even gamers. So if you're a gamer, you know that the price of RAM has gone up about 4 times because data centers are buying all the RAM, they're buying all the computer chips. So if you are a mom and pop business that relies on phones or tablets or computers.
Everyone.
Yeah, basically everyone. I talked to a farmer. No, he's not a farmer. Well, he is a farmer, but he has another small business out near Fort Stockton, which is way west Texas.
Okay.
He said he ordered a bunch of computers, nothing fancy, just standard business computers, back in March, and he still hasn't gotten them. So it's been March, April, May, June, about 5 months, because we're out of computer chips, because big tech's buying them all. So that inflation is being passed down to us.
Is that why I saw recently that someone said, and this relates to gamers as well, and I don't know how I even came across this because I'm not really a big gamer myself. Actually, like not a gamer at all. Used to love like Madden and Call of Duty. Anyway, that if you want a PS5, I think that's the newest model that's out, you better go get one right now because the price of them is about to skyrocket. That's why.
And there's actually another bit, and I'm glad we just brought this up, because it just reminded me. So another reason why they're probably moving towards everything AI is because they want to move everything to the cloud, where every one of your boxes, whether it's a phone or computer, it'll all be dumb boxes, and all the compute, include PlayStation is actually going to be probably pretty notorious for this, where all boxes are dumb boxes. They connect to an actual data center, so that it's part of the own, like you will own nothing and you will be happy.
I was just about to say that. Yeah. That's literally what it is. It's like you no longer actually own the product. The product is streamed from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And when we say the cloud, it's so funny. People that don't look into this assume that, it's just like floating something. No, it's just in another place, and then you're downloading it in real time from another place.
Which, earlier I said, step one to create authoritarian society is to get rid of privacy. Step two is to get rid of private property.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. As the mainstream system continues to tighten its grips on average men and women, with inflation running rampant and cost of living skyrocketing, it's becoming increasingly challenging for most people to make ends meet and to really maintain and expand financial abundance. And that's where I think it's incredibly important that we adopt and really start looking into alternative financial strategies, alternative ways to structure, and then some of these technologies that exist that help us expand and grow outside of these very extractive, exploitative mainstream systems. So I'm sitting here with my dear friend, Otto Gomes from Crypto Freedom Academy, who would like to share a little bit about Crypto Freedom Academy and all of its offerings and what he teaches inside the academy.
Yeah, the academy, the main reason I created it is to create community. And I think that's the most important thing right now. The currency of the future is relationships. And the technologies that we have are only as good as those relationships. And so in the academy, I try to instill in everyone a sense of empowerment to know their current relationship to the energy of exchange so that we can attract more of the medium. I help you guys utilize the technologies that are available to us, like blockchain, trust and contract law, and how to do that privately.
So if you're interested in learning more about Crypto Freedom Academy and all the things that Otto offers and his depth and wealth of knowledge on the topic of crypto and financial structuring and passive income, check out episode 241 of the Way Forward podcast with Otto, or just head to thewayforward.com, and that's thewayfwrd.com/crypto freedom, or just head to the show notes and you'll find the link there. So I could see where someone listening to this feels pretty defeated because data centers are popping up everywhere. And with all that being said, all the things that we've talked about painted a pretty clear picture here. I don't know how you could listen to this episode, leave it, go research some of the things that Clayton has said and say, yeah, still sounds like a good idea. Let's move forward with these. I think it really is incredible that this is one of the issues. I would say largely the Epstein files thing too, that seems to be a nonpartisan issue where people on all sides of the political spectrums that exist are coming together and like, no, there's some problems here. And our government is in bed with multinational corporations and corrupt to the core. That's a good thing that people are coming together in that respect. So the question that I have for you is, what can we do about it? What has been done? And what have you seen happen with various cities, counties being able to stop the development of these data centers?
The only thing that can beat organized money is organized people. And this is true since the founding of our country. Hell, it's been true probably since biblical times.
Yeah.
Right. And, I think of like the last Gilded Era. We really should call it the first Gilded Age, because I would argue we're in the second one right now. Mm-hmm. And it's 1880. And a lot of ranchers are just mad at the world. Their monopolies are destroying small businesses. The big tech of the era, railroads and factories, were just running roughshod. They literally own Congress. they could walk in the halls of Congress and they literally own it. They turned themselves into kings.
Yeah.
They used their money. They were economic royalists, right? Plucking the wings of the American eagle so they can feather their own nest. Well, a group of Texans got together in Lampasas, Texas, about 5 miles from my family ranch. If you're not quite sure where Lampasas is, if you can find the center of Texas, you can find Lampasas. We're equally far from
I went fly
else.
fishing in New Mexico last week and I actually had to drive through Lampasas.
There you go.
So, yeah.
There you go. Beautiful little town. Always stop at Storms.
Mm-hmm.
If you like burgers, it's a great
Okay,
place.
that's good to know.
Yeah, it is a total hole in the wall, and it is amazing.
Okay, awesome.
But anyway, so these ranchers got together and they formed what became the Populist Alliance, or National Farmers Union, and the National Farmers Alliance and Industrial Union. They were the populists. The entire populist movement started in Lampasas, and it spread like a prairie fire because they knew that when we are united, and it's not that we have to agree on everything. No one ever agrees on everything. But a divided people are a conquered people if we stay united, particularly on populism. Because I would argue America is a populist country. We've always been a populist country. Every now and then we will get a little flirty with corporatism. And then we're like, wait a minute, this is a bad idea. And we go back to populism. And you're seeing that throughout all of our society. Mm-hmm. You're seeing like a burst of populism in the Republicans, and the MAHA movement is a burst of populism.
Yep.
The Democrats are having their burst of populism. The Greens, the Libertarians, everyone's having this burst of populism because populism is I have a very, very simple definition. The media likes to make it sound like it's bad or it's, this or that, the other thing, but it's a very simple definition. When you spend $1, do you want that dollar to stay local or do you want it to go to Wall Street? If you wanted to go to Wall Street, you're a corporatist.
Yep.
Simple.
Yep.
To me, it is overly simplified, but it's also basically that simple. If you want to spend $1 and you want it to stay in your local community, you're a populist. So we have beaten these organized money folks before. We have busted their monopolies. We have gotten the past big tech under control, the past big tech under reign. And we're seeing that now. 50% of data centers have been canceled.
50%.
Mm-hmm.
That's
nationally.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And that's all because people are fighting back. That's because people are calling them out for their bullshit. And also, so this is where time is on our side because time is not on their side. They're a bubble. We already talked a little bit about that. I didn't actually say why the bubble's bursting. So to create the computer chips they need, they have to have helium. No helium, no computer chips. 2 places in the world produce helium. Texas and Qatar.
Strait of Hormuz.
Yep. They literally cannot produce the computer chips anymore. So I would say probably out of all the data centers being built, I'm got instinct with these numbers. A third are just complete fraud. They're not even real. They're just building hollow buildings so they can peace out. A third are companies that don't know what they're doing, but they're trying. And a third are people, actual data people, right? But they're literally not going to have the computer chips for any of them. So we're going to be building a lot of hollow buildings is what we're doing. And they actually know it if you actually force them to be honest. Mm-hmm. But because of that, time is on our side. Anything to do to delay them is to stop them. Because a data center is also like a car. If you remove any one component, that car ain't going anywhere. Take the radiator out of my truck. My truck ain't going anywhere, particularly right now in this heat. Right. Same with if you take off a wheel or you take off a fuel injector. Like you just have to remove one part of their supply chain. So maybe you stop them from in parts of Texas and parts of the United States. They have the ability that once you have a well drilled, you do what you want. But they have also water conservation districts that can delay them drilling that well. Mm-hmm. So you can delay them there, or you can even stop them there. You can get city councils to rezone them. That's what we saw in San Marcos. That's what we saw the city of Athens. Well, the city of Athens didn't rezone them. The city of Athens just didn't approve them. So we're seeing that throughout towns everywhere. You could stop their transmission lines. You can delay their transmission lines. You delay those 765 lines.
That's what Bell County's doing with the transmission line, yep. I'm pretty sure right now.
Yep. If you stop that, they could put generators, and they will put generators, so it's not a foolproof. Right now the NAACP is suing XAI because they created New Cancer Alley for all their diesel. Actually, I think their methane generators, still bad.
Yeah.
Including
the water, right?
Creating a New Cancer Alley.
Isn't there something to do with XAI though as well, where there's like a big case related to water pollution? Maybe I'm incorrect on that, but I'm pretty sure there was.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think it's a combination of air.
In either case, we know they're like it's
Yeah.
It's problematic on all avenues.
Yeah, I mean,
nature.
we're creating new cancer alleys all over. Every little data center will be a cancer alley, unfortunately. And they're building these things next to schools, and they're building them out. I was out in El Paso, and they're building one next to a community in the middle of a desert. I'm like, y'all are out of your damn minds. But
what's also wild on that, just real quick with the energy side of things, because we kind of touched on that, but not fully. I remember a year ago, my neighbor that I work out with sometimes in the morning, he works for an energy company in Texas, and he's skeptical of a lot of things like you and I are. And he was like, yeah, man, our company and a lot of these energy companies are talking about how pretty soon in West Texas, during the summer especially, there's going to have to be rolling brownouts or rolling blackouts, which means that people literally won't be able to use power at certain times of the day because the grid can't sustain the power needs right now. And that's without all these data centers that we're producing. It goes back to what you said regarding the 85 gigawatts and moving to 500 gigawatts abruptly, like literally impossible.
Yeah. We're even hearing stories that the data centers are taking so much water that oil rigs don't have enough water to operate.
Insane.
Look, think what you want about oil. If we get rid of oil today, we have a famine tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like
all of our supply chains.
Yeah.
Literally all of our supply chains operate on that.
Yeah. So, think what you want about it. I ain't making any judgment any one way or the other. We have to have it under our current system.
Totally.
So, rather have that than data center anyway, or a mass surveillance center.
Exactly.
Let's just start calling them mass surveillance centers.
And real quick on that, I know some people that listen to this are like, why are you even talking about like vouching for oil and oil companies? There's free energy technology, as you guys mentioned earlier. And like, yes, we're aware of that. Just like we're aware of that ideally all farms across the world would adopt regenerative or biodynamic practices, right? But the reality of the context of where we're at right now means that with our current systems, we need oil in order for the supply chains to operate. That's just the reality of right now.
It's one thing to have a compass and to know where true north is. Everyone needs it. It's another thing to have a map to avoid the canyons and traps.
Great analogy.
So to head due north, sometimes you have to go in a interesting way.
Yeah, interesting direction. Yeah.
But yeah, so basically we're seeing a lot of these things being stopped a lot. And that's all because of organized people.
Yeah.
Like 100%. It's not like they like have a Grinch moment where their heart grew. If they even have hearts.
Valid question. Honestly, valid question.
The more I learn about those folks, I'm like, dear God.
We're talking about AI in the future. Are we sure these people aren't already AI? It's like some of those questions that are like, man, that Sam Altman interview, like, or even the Peter Thiel interview, when he was asked,
Thiel in particular.
Yeah, like when he was asked, should he, like a throw a bone question, like, of course human beings should survive. We're like the pinnacle species that is the, steward of the earth. He could have said literally anything, but he said he had to really think about it.
Yeah. Radical idea. Maybe psychopaths shouldn't be running our society.
Radical idea.
Radical idea.
Right.
But yeah, look, only organized people can beat organized money. To delay these folks, to stop these folks. So anything you can do to delay, whether that's through environmental studies, ag impact studies, ag development districts, whether that's stopping their power, their water. In the state of Texas, everyone who owns an apartment or a place to live, you have the right to quiet enjoyment of that property. If a subwoofer is right outside your house 24/7, violates state law. There's also the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act that says anything related to the military, quote unquote, or national defense, quote unquote, cannot use any components made in China. They all use components made in China. Their main computer chips are Taiwan, different country. And that's why I'm probably banned in China for saying that. If you ever want to get banned from China, just say Taiwan is an independent country. And then, thunk.
Yeah.
Bye. But anyway.
All the computer chips are made in China to some degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or components of what these computers are using.
So I think they violate federal law as well. So I think they violate state law, they violate federal law, and they also just violate moral law. We shouldn't be mass surveilling ourselves or our neighbors. We shouldn't be automating our jobs away with literally no plan. There's also something unique about America. So in a lot of the world, it's very impolite to ask people what they do for your work. Like, and as America,
that's like the first question that most Americans ask.
Is always the first question.
Yeah. I actually hate that to some degree too, because like, it should be, what are you interested in? What lights you up, man? Like, what makes you feel alive?
Yeah. I mean, I think it actually used to be that way.
Yeah.
But with this extreme consumerism, this extreme corporate control over media and just everything else, it's pushed us in that direction. I don't think it's particularly healthy. I think you should do what makes you happy. What are you interested in? So, and that's how most of the world operates. It's if you go to Japan or Taiwan, particularly Taiwan, and you ask, what do you do for work? They'll that's like asking a guy how much money you make or a woman, what do you weigh?
Yeah.
It's just extraordinarily like you don't do that.
Defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I'll share something real quick. And I brought this up before on another episode. I don't remember which one, but I have a friend who is really high up in the echelons of the MAHA movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't coming from a defeatist mindset. Sort of goes into the conversation that you and I were talking about off air before we started recording regarding like my libertarian philosophy and then being philosophically a voluntarist and all those things that we were discussing earlier. But I was basically relaying to this person high up in the MAHA movement who is really stoked about, first off, RFK running for president, and then RFK supporting Trump, and then RFK being potentially HHS secretary at the time, and like really, really backing RFK. And I love a lot of what RFK says. I love a lot of what the MAHA movement proposes. And I guess I had already sort of checked the box on anything at the federal level. It's so wholly corrupt that there's not much you can do. So I don't know why we're putting all of our energetic eggs in that basket, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And this person took issue with me saying these things, and we had some conversations related to it. I had a lot of MAHA movement people that became frustrated with me because I would not endorse Trump because RFK was getting behind Trump, which was their whole argument that you should endorse Trump because RFK is getting behind Trump, and this is our one chance to make sure we get someone in there who is able to change things from the inside. And I shared all the reasons why I think that position doesn't actually work, and it can't possibly work. And it's on us as men and women to stop outsourcing our authority to politicians, take ownership of our own lives, organize as people in local areas. And there is some possible validity to local politics within that argument, right? Because you can see sort of change happen in real time, relatively speaking. And that person has now come full circle to say that they're meeting so much resistance in these congressional meetings, in these senatorial meetings, and meetings with these three-letter agencies and the USDA, and where these executives and secretaries of various positions will tell them one thing to the MAHA movement and then do the exact opposite with respect to their relationship with chemical companies, pharmaceutical companies, et cetera, and they're incredibly frustrated. And I want to hear your thoughts on that. But what I responded to them with, and this is where I think, even with all that I just said, I don't think that there is anything that can change the federal government from the inside at this point. That's where I stand, and that's okay if anyone disagrees with me. But with all that being said, what I told this person is, by having the platform that you have, and by RFK getting into that position, even if there's not really much that he's going to do to really move the needle, because another administration could come in 2 years later and just reverse all the decisions that he makes, and that's the unfortunate part of it. By getting in that position, you've raised awareness to where people themselves can make better decisions on the ground. People are better informed on the problems with glyphosate now. 5 years ago, the average American had never even heard of that. Now, most people know what glyphosate is and are somewhat familiar with the harms that it poses. Del Bigtree, when I was on his show, The High Wire, a few months ago, this is a whole separate conversation, but he said 60% of Americans, according to a recent report, are going to delay or at least one vaccination for their children. That would have been unheard of even 2 to 3 years ago. So the point is, by these people being in these positions, these conversations are now becoming mainstream, which is a net positive in many ways, because now the common people are able to make better decisions and organize themselves. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on that from a federal level. I understand that at a local and possibly a state level too, it's a different conversation. But the point that I'm getting at is, in my opinion, the power is in the people. And I don't think we really understand that, like how much power we actually have when we unite together and just say no. Like, no, this is not happening. this is not going to go forward?
I'm a really big reader of history. That's almost all I ever read. I history, biographies. And I always notice in every historical moment, there's the person who comes first, and they'll have some success, but never as much success. But they start the conversations, they start the awareness, and then will come another person who actually completes the job.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest, this isn't 100% of an example, but a fair enough example, Theodore Roosevelt, his square deal, his populism, he was successful at some things, he failed at a lot of things. Later came the New Deal, and again, it kind of continued, it picked up that a lot of those ideas, not 100% of them, and I'm not saying it was perfect, but it moved along. That's probably true for every movement. I think every movement kind of has those fits and starts, and with the MAHA movement in particular, one of the things, what kind of got me involved in a lot of the food and the chemical stuff, including with glyphosate. So growing up, I had no food allergies. I could just eat whatever. I had no issues. And then I lived abroad, those 3 years I mentioned about. And after that time, I got the call from the family of you're the oldest of the oldest. What you're doing is fun, but get your ass back to the ranch. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Well, I come back and I find myself allergic to a lot of processed foods. So I can't eat bread. Now, if it's Italian bread, I'm okay. But if it's American bread, not okay. And I was trying to research. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? Why am I now getting sick from all this? It's not like deathly ill. It's just, nauseous.
Gut issues.
Nauseous for 8 hours, stuff like that. And I find out, okay, well, our bread is, if you buy American bread and you take it to Europe and you call it bread, they will arrest you.
Right. Literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like you legally cannot call it bread. It's full of chemicals. It's full of all these things. The chemical in yoga mats to make yoga mats soft is in American bread.
Insane.
If you take a bottle of olive oil that you buy here in the United States and you take it to Italy, I don't know if you know this, but the Italians have a dedicated police force only about olive oil.
No way.
Yeah. So like if you call something olive oil and it's not olive oil in Italy, your ass is in jail. It's like a felony over there.
That's how seriously they take their food, though. That's so funny.
It's like you can't.
As they should, though.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put chemicals in your food.
Yeah.
Food has to be whole. It has to be organic.
Yeah.
So with RFK getting rid of a lot of these food dyes. Look, food dyes are all based on oil. So every time you're eating a food dye, you're eating processed oil.
It's a net positive in that respect. Don't get me wrong.
So there's a lot that we have to do. Like we're I was about to say we're stringent on medicine, and then I kind of checked myself like we're really not.
Yeah.
We are the government is more skeptical of new medicines, but with food additives, it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
So in most countries, before you add any sort of ingredient to food, you have to prove that one ingredient is safe. In the United States, you have to prove that it's not safe once it's already in there.
It goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's insane. You have to prove retroactively that it's not safe.
Yeah. And then they add all these different mixes, and they just are able to dilute it. So a lot of our food is not very healthy. They strip a lot of the nutrition out of the food because hunger isn't necessarily about eating calories. It's not necessarily about volume. It's micronutrition. So if you eat something that's micronutrient dense, like a piece of meat, now that meat has to be grass-fed.
Yep.
Very, very, if it's corn-fed, I'm sorry, you're not really getting that much nutrition. But if it's grass-fed, then you get it, you can eat less, and you feel full, and you feel full longer, but they're getting rid of that. And I don't know if you know this, but it was actually Texas that started the organics movement.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So in the 1980s, a man named Jim Hightower, great guy if you ever want to look him up.
Is he still around?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He's
cool.
in his 80s, so he's definitely getting up there. He was in the ag commissioner 82 to 92, something like that, plus or minus a little bit. But anyway, he started a lot of the organics labeling. So there was like little bits and pieces organics labeling in California and elsewhere, but he created a state standard that you could trust that label. Because part of the problem we have here in the United States is you can't trust your label.
No.
So the best example I hear of, so it would say you go to your grocery store, you try to buy some beef, and you find the beef with the American flag on the package. So you think you're buying American. It's probably Brazilian, possibly Argentinian. We really don't eat our own food anymore. So he created a standard where the organic label, there are some loopholes that we have to close. It's not perfect, but if something's labeled organic with the true, not just the word organic, but the actual label, then you can be relatively assured that it is most likely actually organic.
There's still a lot of problems with that now, though.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of big companies will absolutely find loopholes and do find loopholes in that and do the absolute bare minimum to check the box because they know that it's becoming increasingly a fad, which is also a good sign. Like, I don't think McDonald's, for example, cares about regenerative agriculture.
Nope.
But they just invested $200 million into regenerative practices because they see that the trends are moving in this direction right now and they want to get ahead of it.
Yeah, my favorite is when someone tries to mark water as organic.
Yeah.
That's silly. So actually, one of the things I would like to do, and I haven't worked out all the details on this, is just kind of call it a value statement. Like I believe that labels should be strong so that when you get your product earns a label, it actually means something, and for consumers actually know what they're buying. I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm telling people what they can or cannot eat. I think that's just anti-American.
Agree.
But we need to make sure people know exactly what they're getting. So one of the things I would like to do is add a new label, like a regenerative label. Because just because you're organic doesn't necessarily mean you're regenerative. There's a lot of overlap, but it's not complete. Where it can be a regenerative score. So we'll say it's from like 1 to 5. And if you get a 5, let's call that like, yeah, you're not regenerative at all. Like it's just, you're destroying your soil.
I like that.
And if you get a 1, then you could do this for 2,000 years and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I like that because then it kind of takes away the either organic or not. It's like a spectrum. Like how much does this farm or this, whatever comply with and actually put into regenerative practices or organic practices?
Because I know a lot of farmers and ranchers where they might be like they're fully regen except for this one little thing they can't get off of. Like deworming chemicals. Like maybe they just have a really bad case of worms and they have to use dewormer chemicals. Again, problematic. I'm not going to say it's not. Though ivermectin is probably our best bet against a screwworm right now. Whole different case. But, so maybe instead of getting a 1, they'll get a 2. So, you're still rewarding people for that, and you're allowing the market to reward people as well. It's not like government rewarding people, it's the market rewarding them. So, I think that could help create that market, create the local. I also want to make sure we already seen this with Go Texan.
What's that?
It's basically if a product's from Texas or the company's based in Texas, you get a little Go Texan.
Okay.
So it just basically shows things are local. I really, actually, what I'm going to slightly contradict myself. So please excuse me for contradicting myself. I think we actually do our labeling system all wrong. Because we label organic food or local food as if it's the abnormal thing, right? We really should be labeling processed foods.
I 100%
and foreign
agree.
foods. Now, I think
organic food is just food.
Yeah.
We should have to stipulate that this is like food, but it's not food.
So, maybe we start by getting organic stronger and the regen label stronger. But I think the ultimate goal, and look, I'm not going to lie, this is going to take a couple of years to get figured out and to really implement. But the ultimate goal should be no processed food is labeled and foreign food is labeled.
Yeah.
So again, if you want to eat something processed, you want to eat something not made in America, 100% you're right and freedom to do so. Your body, your choice. But, we should make sure that, no, that's the abnormal.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I could imagine going to Walmart, which I very rarely step foot in, if ever. But going into Walmart and on like a thing of cabbage, it says, this is kind of like cabbage or like cabbage.
Like cabbage.
Because
Wait,
that would cause the average consumer to be like, what do you mean? Like, what does this mean? And they'd have to look into, this is a bunch of chemicals sprayed on it. And that one doesn't. This is genetically modified. That one isn't. It's interesting. It would sort of flip on its head the education around it. That's interesting. Some other questions that I have for you running for agricultural commissioner. And I would like to hear, again, what you would plan to do to stop data centers yourself. I love that you did discuss, though, especially based on everything that I said, how we, the people, can organize against data centers, because that's the big thing. You mentioned that you're not even in the seat yet, and you've still been able to help people stop data centers in certain areas. And I highly encourage those listening and watching, even if you're not in Texas, to follow Clayton, because what the work that he's doing related to opposing data centers is huge and has massive implications across the world. But on the farming front, on the farming side of things, all the problems I mentioned with government subsidies going towards conventional farming practices, and hopefully the winds are sort of changing direction to help regenerative farmers. I know there's been some stuff happening that might be good at the federal level related to regenerative agriculture. So I'd just love to hear what you would ideally like to do and what you have the power to do as agricultural commissioner to help regenerative practices grow in the state of Texas.
So first and foremost, we have to make sure folks are fully educated on what regenerative agriculture actually is. What's always funny, is usually someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're a bot, either or. We'll say online like, oh, regenerative is one size fits all. And I'm like, bro, have you not seen chemical farming?
Yeah.
Have you not seen monopoly farming? Like
that's literally one size fits all.
That's literally one size. Like there's nothing one size fits all about regen. Like,
No.
It's custom per ranch or per farm, which makes it harder, but
That's
makes
how
it work.
Should be though, man.
Yeah. So the Texas Department of Agriculture has a lot of power through grants. We can give a lot of grants out. We can also do a lot of pesticide. What's the word? It's not really regulation. That's not quite the right word. Education on it.
Yeah.
So we can do a lot of education on both regen, on pesticide, and do everything else. Do a lot of licensing. So we can kind of start shifting things where right now, all the benefits, and you mentioned it with your friends, they all go to the conventional folks, and the regen folks are told to pound rocks.
Yeah. So
we can start switching that over where regen folks are getting the support, particularly now with the mass inflation we're seeing in farm inputs. Like, now's the time.
Now's the time. Now's the perfect time.
I think, because this is the beautiful thing about regen. When done right, it's more profitable. Mm-hmm. It's not only more sustainable economically, it's more sustainable environmentally and morally and everything else. So it's a win-win, except for the agrochemical companies, but they can buzz off.
Yeah.
So once a lot of farmers understand that and know that and have the tools to be able to do it, they'll start switching. So farmers is it's exponential growth. So it'll take a long time, and then everyone switches all of a sudden. So we're at 1.5% regen or sustainable right now, but once that baby gets rolling, it'll take off extraordinarily quickly. And there's a lot of really great groups. Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance is one of them. Noble Research Institute, particularly if you're in cattle. Fantastic. I learned a lot of what I know about regen from them. And there's a number of other really good groups. Carbon Cowboys is a really good group about it as well.
Cool. Awesome. On that note, with respect to it being more profitable, I don't remember the exact numbers, but Molly, who again is my friend who's a farmer herself in Texas, her farm in Fillmore, California that she used to own, they had, I don't remember the exact number, but far less land than the neighboring farms. And she was one of, if not the only one in the area that had adopted permaculture design principles and regenerative agricultural practices. And her crop yield relative to her neighbors was far more. And the money that she was making on her crops was far more than her neighbors as well.
When done right, your yields are better, your expenses are down. And part of also the problem right now, so in the old days, you always had a mix of everything. So, you had your cows, you had your wheat, your soy, cotton, hogs. Hogs were always the break glass in case of emergency. Because no matter what, when other things went down, hogs went up. I don't know why it always worked that way. It always worked that way. So what's great about regen is when it's done correctly, when it's done on a per farm, per ranch basis, you always have at least one crop that's going to do well. So like right now, cattle is doing fantastic. Everyone else is not doing that great. So, if everyone had a little bit of a mix, it can really be beneficial.
Yeah, if every farm had a sort of adopted that approach where they're diversifying, if you will. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So it'll take time to implement. This is not a rush order thing. Our food system is too delicate and too important to rush it too fast. Mm-hmm. And we need to go as fast as we can without causing inflation or farms to collapse. So it's a delicate balance.
I have a selfish ask.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if this is in your area that you could do this. What can you do related to raw milk in grocery stores? And the reason I ask this is like, as much as California's political climate sucks, it is amazing that you can go into an organic grocery store in California and just buy raw milk right off the shelf. And whereas a lot of other states, you have to do this loophole where it's like, oh, I'm buying raw milk that is pet formula raw milk or raw milk for pets. And then in Texas, you have to go directly to the farm or to a farmer's market, which is not that big of a deal. I love supporting farmers markets and going directly to the farm. And it would be convenient in some cases to be able to go directly to the grocery store and buy raw milk too.
Oh, yeah. So let's back up a little bit so everyone has a little bit of context about this conversation. There are a lot of regulations, food standards that are legitimately about health. The vast majority of them are about corporations putting little folks down. So a really good example is grated eggs. For the longest time, restaurants could not sell grated eggs or use grated eggs, and grocery stores could not sell or use grated eggs. And they always say, egg grading is about health. It had nothing to do with health. Grading of eggs is, does this egg look pretty? Like, that's literally all of it. You cannot tell the health of an egg by looking at it, like physically impossible. So that regulation, though it was framed and they used language coded as this is about health, it was all about big egg, keeping the little guys out. A lot of what we're talking about with raw milk and a lot of like meat processors are all about that. Now, as ag commissioner, we would have to lobby the Texas government because a lot of that is written by law in the Texas legislative, the lieutenant governor and governor. So we would have to go through them. There are some really amazing farm groups that are doing that. Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance, Texas Farmers Union, that are always working on that. Because again, as I said earlier, it is against my values and frankly should be against everyone's values to tell people what they can or cannot eat.
Amen.
If you want to drink our milk, drink it. If you want to drink pasteurized milk, drink it. I'm not here to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. I think people have to make their right choice. I think things have to be properly labeled, and those labels have to be 100% enforceable with teeth and be trusted. So on the labeling side, if we got that passed, I would probably step in there. Then the Ag Commissioner and the Texas Department of Agriculture would have a say on that. But until we get the state government to get off its ass and to not be bought off by big dairy, it's going to be pretty hard.
There's so many bigs: big dairy, big ag, big farm.
The monopolies took over everything.
Yeah.
So if you go to a grocery store, the average grocery store has 577 brands. There's less than 10 corporations behind them.
Insane.
Even the brands that are so-called competing, like they'll like, oh, we're better than this. They're owned by the same people.
Yeah, it's insane.
And even I'm hearing more and more reports that if you even dive down even deeper, like if you look at those 10 corporations, they look different. But if you look at who owns stocks in those corporations, it all feeds back to like one or three entities, including BlackRock.
Yeah, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street almost every single time.
Yeah.
Almost every single time, man.
It's always them.
Yeah. It's insane.
So it's like, are even those 10 corporations, are they even actually 10 corporations?
Right.
So the monopolization issue is severely, severely problematic. It was the Supreme Court justice once said, I don't remember his name. This is like New Deal era. Like, we can either have great concentration of wealth in the hands of a few, we could have democracy, but we cannot have both.
Yeah.
So, and monopolies are that way those greedy few folks get so much power.
Yeah.
If we didn't have monopolies, if we had a system of small businesses, we'd be fine. Here's a really great example. So it's 1970, you go to a local grocery store, which is probably, one per block back then, and you buy $1 worth of beef. My papa, as the cattleman, got 77 cents of that dollar. Nowadays, I get about 20 cents. It can be down as 14 cents on a bad year. The only thing that's fundamentally changed, it's not the technology, it's not any of that, is we went from thousands of local grocery stores, thousands of local independent co-ops and processors, thousands of local farms, now to 2 or 3 big corporations that control the entire system.
Yeah.
And true for grocery stores.
Also, food brokers with grocery stores. Like, people don't realize how many barriers to farmers actually turning a good profit on the crops that they produce. Like, it's crazy. Food brokers, the suppliers, and then also the grocery stores.
There's a reason most restaurants in the United States all taste the same. It's because Cisco provides all of them their ingredients.
Insane. It's insane, man. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I like to say, and I don't believe in silver bullets. I do believe in silver buckshots. So there's a lot we have to do to fix our food system. If we don't fix the monopoly problem, nothing else matters.
Yeah. Amen. I agree with that 100%. So I want to talk about now data centers. We touched briefly on some other things, and there's so many other things we could get into, and I appreciate your time with this. But what you would do as agricultural commissioner to oppose data centers and why it is an agricultural issue, which I know we've already touched on briefly.
So anything that hurts Texas farmers, it is my business. And this is true even as my role as secretary of the Texas Farmers Union. Granted, if I were to win, I would step down so I could be, fully independent. But we need people to protect others, right? So if it takes a lot of water, I do believe the agriculture commissioner has a say, through ag impact studies. We can study how something affects agriculture. How does, if you're taking 1 billion gallons of water, or 1 million, I guess, 1 billion is a little bit of an exaggeration, but only by a little, then, I want to know how that affects it so we can delay them. These folks are a bubble. A delay is a stop at this point. So you got that power, you got the ag development districts, won't really help people in cities, but out in the county, you keep hearing, county governments have no authority. That's half true. And the county commissioners have no authority. That is accurate. However, locals can create ag development districts. You just need 10 locals. You must be a property owner. If you get 10 of y'all, sign a petition, send it to the county commission, you can create ag development district. If anyone listening to this needs information, just email us, claytontuckertx.com. We'll put you in connect with the people who have gone through this process to help you out. So you got that. And of course, always the power of the bully pulpit. Mentioned we've stopped a couple of them, not even elected, because right now the people are hungry to fight back. Mm-hmm. And look, if this is a borderline populist revolt, people do not want this. And if they keep shoving this down our throats, the revolt will get worse before it gets better.
Agree.
So again, even if you work in data centers and you think that we're over exaggerating, pause. Let's get the data on the data centers. Let's figure this all out. If you think I am wrong in any of this, pause and prove me wrong.
Yeah.
I will be happy to admit I misstated something, but we have to pause so that we can be proven wrong or proven right. So, yeah, that's what we would do. Just anything to delay, anything to stop. If I'm the only one that's anti-data center elected, I could get overruled. If whoever wins governor or lieutenant governor, yeah, I mean, if they're not friendlies, let me put it this way. So the current ag commissioner, his name's Sid Miller, and a very, very nice guy. Very, very, very nice guy. I met him a couple times. Originally, I was planning to run against him. It was going to be a populist jamboree because I consider Sid a populist. I'm a populist. So it's what flavor of populism do you like the most? Well, our current Governor Abbott, has been slowly taking over more and more of the state government. You see that through the PUC. You see that through all these boards. And Sid Miller, regardless of what you think of him, whether you're on the right and you love him, or on your left and you don't like him, regardless, he kept the TDA, Texas Department of Ag, very independent. He actually sued Governor Abbott over COVID emergency powers that Governor Abbott granted himself. Governor Abbott did not like that. And according to some of our sources, a lot of money was spent to get Sid out so that TDA could be put under the current administration's thumb, basically. So the guy running there now is a puppet. Actually, I'm having another little ADHD moment. My papa had a really fun saying about puppets. So he said, in this world, you're one of three things. You're a person, you're a parrot, or you're a puppet, right? Either you're a person and you come up to your own conclusions, right or wrong, good or bad, you make up your own mind. Or you're a parrot, you just repeat whatever some talking head said. Or someone has their hand so far up your ass that they control your mouth and you become a politician.
Yeah. That's good. Those are good rules. Those are good three categories.
He was a fun man.
Yeah.
Not a man to ever mess with, but he was a fun man.
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, so even right now, Commissioner Miller and I, he lost his primary. So I'm now running against a corporatist who owns stock and actually the companies who even might make glyphosate and all these other things.
Does he really?
We found that out yesterday.
Wow.
So sneak peek. You're hearing it here first because I literally have not told anyone else.
That is crazy,
So,
man.
breaking news.
And he's running for agricultural commissioner.
As a MAHA person who owns stock in the chemical corporations.
Oh my gosh.
And in
man.
Tyson.
Oh,
And
in Tyson.
Yeah. So,
Unreal.
Lulz.
And he's trying to frame himself as MAHA?
and America first.
Oh, wow.
I'm like,
wow, man.
bro.
That's a perfect example of like the real term controlled opposition. Like that's what that is right there. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Like, if anything, I'm the America first because I want everything made here. Actually, one of the things we want to do as ag commissioner is, so we have a lot of control over supply chains for school lunches, public schools. I have no authority over private schools. But while I can't control the ingredients, I can control the supply chains. I want to have a rule that anything served at Texas public schools has to be from Texas farmers, from Texas ranchers, and processed by Texas-owned companies.
That's awesome.
Or co-ops, whatever.
That's
whichever
awesome,
way it
man.
is.
My friend Molly makes the argument that, and obviously, like I said, she's very big on regenerative practices and eating organic food, of course. But she makes the argument, we don't need to get into it now, that if you had to choose between eating organic 365 brand, which is produced in China, bought at Whole Foods, or eating non-organic, or at least no organic label, but buying locally, do the latter. Do the buy locally that's quote unquote non-organic.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Local. We have to start becoming a little bit more careful with farmers markets. The corporations have figured out how to get they love their shell companies.
Yeah.
So we're getting more and more reports of shell companies at farmers markets.
Really?
Yeah. Ain't that wild? So,
really? In
mhm.
Texas farmers markets? What?
It's not an absolute. So, if you know the person in particular and you know for certain they live there, it's probably fine. But we're getting more and more reports of
That's
that.
wild, the level of infiltration. That's
Oh,
crazy.
they're just taking over everything.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But yeah, so that's, I don't remember what else we were talking about.
That's all right. That's all right.
Full ADHD moment right there.
That's all good, man. It's all good.
Right now, Commissioner Miller and I are finding ourselves in complete agreement. He's the only statewide official who's calling for, whether you call it a moratorium or a pause, whatever you want to call it, that, we just can't be doing this. And we agree with him, which shows this isn't left or right. This is Texans wanting to protect Texas.
Amen. Amen. You're setting an example for the rest of the world. So I appreciate that, man. Is there anything else you want to share as we're closing up?
The one thing I always tell folks, so, we're running a populist campaign, which means we're really close to the people. And one of the things that we do, and this is kind of, I believe this shows what kind of different campaign we're running, is, if you go to a lot of politician sites, their websites, they'll all their issue pages are just, if they even have an issue page, it's all one direction. This is what I plan to do. There's no communication. We do things different where all of our issues are petitions. So if you hate glyphosate, you can go to our glyphosate page and sign it because that tells me what you care about. You can also leave a story. So it would say, you hate glyphosate because it killed your dog. You could tell us that.
Yeah.
So we've had 35,000 signatures across all of our petitions.
Yeah.
And that kind of, all the stories I mentioned today is from those petitions because, when people share their stories, it's really, really beneficial. And then sometimes we even call hey, can you tell us more about this? So we always encourage folks, please sign those petitions. It, honest to God, helps us know what folks care about. Even if you're not in Texas, but you have a fantastic story to share or a horrible story to share, still very beneficial. Some of the stories I even told today aren't necessarily based in Texas.
All right, one in Canada,
still,
for example.
Yeah, the one in Canada.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Right.
But I would say that's easily the best ask. The second best ask, if you like what you're hearing today, just follow. And if you live in Texas, this is a statewide race. If you eat food and you're registered to vote, you can vote in this race. And I would ask for your vote.
Awesome. I appreciate you, man. This has been an awesome conversation. And you are a walking encyclopedia on data centers. If I had told you that a year ago, you probably would have been like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
I would have. And I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with ag?
But
they take our water. Okay, yeah. Now it is
pollute our lights. Make it so our cows can't actually reproduce. Yeah, pretty significant issue. So I appreciate you, man.
If it messes with our members, it messes with me.
Amen. Amen to that. So for those who are listening and watching, all the stuff on Clayton is in the show notes. Please head there, and thank you for your continued support of The Way Forward. I appreciate you, man.
Thank y'all. God bless.